as we've been doing in the recent past, we've been doing something other than the Pledge of Allegiance. So you might recall a couple of meetings ago, we did the lyrics to the first stanza of This Land Is Your Land by Woody Guthrie. And then last week, we read the lyrics to America the Beautiful. And I feel like it's nice to connect with, let's say, a sense of community, our sense of how we need to value Mother Earth and need to value one another as, as citizens of this country. So Haley, if you wouldn't mind posting the lyrics to the first stanza of America the Beautiful, thank you so much. So all of us board members, as well as anyone that is out there tuning into this meeting, and I'm sure there's at least a dozen of you, please feel free to join me in the reading of America the Beautiful. Oh, beautiful
for spacious skies,
for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesty above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. So I think it's important, like I say, to remember not just our connection to the Creator, but our connection to our brothers and sisters all over the planet, but especially in this country, especially in these very demanding and challenging and unpredictable times.
A lot of folks here.
Moving on to item number 3, we have a quorum. Agenda reviews and deletions. I'm making the suggestion that when we get to regular business, I was even considering doing regular business before everything else, but since we have a variety of important items to discuss with regard to committee and liaison reports, we'll leave regular business where it is, but we're going to move the item 7C, which is the discussion of the rate increase. We're going to move that to the first item of regular business. And with regard to the district mission statement, which is regular business A, we're removing that to 7C. So moving forward now, public safety. I see Commander Nelson is in the building, so to speak. Commander, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you. How are you?
We're all doing fine. Just out of curiosity, where are you right now, and how's the weather outside?
I'm in my office in Los Osos, and the weather is fantastic. It's nice and sunny and not too much wind.
Well, hopefully you'll give us as delightful a report from the Sheriff's Department as you have for the weather, and go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. So for the month of April, we had 125 calls for service this year. Last year, same time, we had 292. So we had quite a decrease in calls for service, which is good. So going down the list for certain crimes, for assault and battery, we had 3 calls for service regarding that. Of note, we had a call at Center Street and Bridge Street. It was regarding a subject who threw a rock at another subject. The rock did not hit the victim. The victim was uninjured. The suspect was identified, and charges are being filed with the DA's office, District Attorney's office. We had 7 calls for service regarding disturbances. The majority of those calls were regarding loud noise. We had 2 calls for service regarding burglaries. Of note, we had a burglary of a business in the 2200 block of Main Street. A safe containing money from the business was taken. That case is currently active and being investigated by the Sheriff's Detective Division. We had 4 calls for services regarding thefts. All 4 of those calls were regarding thefts from parked vehicles that were unlocked. So just a reminder, when you're out and about, remember, always lock your vehicle and always keep valuables out of your vehicle if you can. If not, keep them out of sight, locked in the trunk. And we had we had 2 calls regarding vandalisms, nothing notable. We didn't have any calls for service regarding mail theft or phone scams. And that's it. Yeah. That's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you, Commander Nelson. Any questions from board members or anyone
Yes.
from the staff?
Yes.
Director Rice.
I just was curious if you could just briefly talk about the sheriff department role in enforcing the restrictions on the relating to the coronavirus.
Sure. You're referring to the shelter at home order?
And or any of the other restrictions.
Okay. So with those restrictions, so specifically, we've gotten calls on non-essential businesses operating. So for that, kind of what we do is we go out to location, we talk to the owner, we notify them. And, we ask them to comply. And then if it continues, we have a series of notices we give them. And then it can eventually go, to the county and affect the business license. But so far, for the 2 months we've been doing this, everybody's been pretty compliant with the businesses. We have gone out to businesses, we've informed them, and everybody's been pretty good about complying. There's also a specific line for people to call in regarding businesses, which goes to code enforcement, and they also investigate it. So as of now, with the new, since some businesses are reopening, there's been limited reopening, code enforcement, county code enforcement is handling enforcement of that. If we do get a call regarding that, we will handle it the same. We'll go out, we'll make contact, we'll talk to them, explain the rules, and, ask for compliance. We also get, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to specifically ask about like crowds at the beach, like if it getting crowded at the beach or somewhere.
Yeah, we've gotten calls on that too, specifically so the Los Osos substation covers, from Ragged Point all the way to Avila Beach. So specifically, we've been getting calls in Cayucas and Avila Beach regarding that. Avila Beach is primarily handled by the Harbor District. For that in Cayucas, we kind of take a similar approach. If we get a call, with the gatherings, things like that, we go out, we contact them. We inform them, of the order, and then we ask for compliance. And we've had, we've had some of those calls. So far, even, 2 weekends ago, I was in Cayucas. Saturday, I drove through to see, how it was. Same with Avila. And there's, a lot of people on the beaches, but from what I've seen, people are generally trying to comply. They're trying to keep their distance. They're doing the things that they should be doing. Hopefully that answered your question.
It did. Thank you for your clarifications.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Director Rice, for that question. I just have one for you, Commander Nelson. With regard to that incident at Center and Bridge Street, did that happen to involve one of the homeless people in our community or not?
I usually don't give out the name of the subject. So I don't know for sure.
All right.
I don't know.
I would hope
sure.
that
I can check on that.
It's really not that important. I know that there's so many different, there's 2 opposing kind of opinions with regard to the homeless in our community. And, I would have preferred if we found out that it wasn't one of those folks, because they can be a little bit eccentric at times. And it'd be preferable to know that it wasn't one of them. So, but it's not a big thing. I just thought I would ask.
Okay. I mean, if you would like, it would take me like a minute. I could probably find out.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So thank you so much. It's going to be a 3-day weekend, and I hope it's a quiet one for you folks at the Sheriff's Department.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you very much as well. All righty. Moving on to item 2B and the fire chief's report. And Chief Hollingsworth, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, President Farmer and other members of the board. Thank you for having us here today. For the month of April, we had a remarkable downturn in incidents, just like on the law enforcement side. We had a total of 46 emergency responses compared to 88 at this same month period last year, which puts us this year at a total of 299 emergency responses as opposed to 382. So almost 100 less than where we were last year. We had one fire this last month, and that was a small fire inside of a garage that was quickly extinguished. The largest decrease in calls in regards to a category would be into the emergency medical response, and then what we refer to as a public service assist, which could be anything from I can't turn off the water in my house to I proverbially have fallen and cannot get up. So people are just kind of isolating and following that direction well. You'll notice on the second statistics page that our exposure to local versus non-local is also significantly changed because we're not having as many people come into the area. So you are seeing some changes there. Operationally, you'll notice that we have switched almost entirely to Zoom or GoToMeeting to handle all of the different committees that we're responsible to participate with, and that is working effectively for the time being. We are continuing to support the Are You OK program that we helped develop with CERT. We have people in the community that are being contacted on a daily basis at this point. It's very successful, and they're having very good feedback in regards to how much it's being appreciated by some of the people that are, they're following the right protocol and staying at home, but they do need to get checked on at a regular basis. You'll probably notice that we participated in a couple of recent pile burns that occurred in the community. We put that information on the website and put it out on social media. We were able to get rid of and work with the Fire Safe Council and CAL FIRE to get rid of piles at Highway 1 in Ardith, and then also at Main Street in Burton down there above town. And then we are currently in the process of evaluating the right criteria based on the approved attestation from the county public health department on figuring out what kind of metrics we're going to use for reinstituting some of the educational and public programs that we like participating with from the fire department standpoint, everything from helping out in schools to getting out and doing the business inspections and doing the things that we really want to do to help create a more fire safe community. And we're in the process of evaluating that like everyone else is. So that's in process. And as soon as we have any additional information, we'll be happy to pass that along. And I'm over to you for any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Any members of the board or staff, any questions of the any questions of our fire chief? I have one brief one, Chief, and I'm only bringing this up because a couple of people have posed it to me. They're just curious as to why the number of hydrants inspected has gone down this year. I know there's a legitimate reason for it, but perhaps you can pass that on to myself and the other board members and the members of the public as well.
Sure, President Farmer. It is a good question. I have been able to address this in the past. I'm happy to do so again. The fire hydrant inspection program historically in most jurisdictions is the purview of the water department. And we were able to partner with them in the last few years when we had additional staff on board to help in that process. And with the conclusion of the SAFER program and the reduction in staff and the other mandated things that we are supposed to and required to do, we have very limited ability to get out and continue that process. I know the water department is looking aggressively at getting some additional help to do that. We're also pursuing another internship program that's available through Allen Hancock College Fire Academy, where we might have the ability to bring people in a non-paid capacity, but then assign them programs like this and then partner with the water department to be able to move forward. So Jim and I have talked about this a little bit on how we could proceed, and we do have some other avenues available to us right now that we're looking at. But currently, with the reduction in staffing and resources, it's not something that we're able to get out and do on a regular basis.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that explanation. So that would be it for you, Chief Hollingsworth. And once again, you and your staff have how could we say it, a quiet 3-day weekend as well.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
President Farmer, I do have a member of the public that wishes to speak on this item.
Oh, excuse me, I should have asked. Yes, go ahead, member of the public.
Okay. Tina, go ahead and unmute yourself.
I'm very sorry. It's actually for public comment. I'm sorry, Haley. Next item. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. All right, Chief, you're off the hook, babe. So moving on to item 3 and public comment. And so let me just say we have 34 participants at the meeting today. So if we remove staff and board members, that means we've got probably about 24 people out there in the audience. So just to let you folks know, a number of you I know are tuning in to express your viewpoint on the rate increase. That will be done. Those comments will be listened to when we address that item in the agenda. So right now we have public comment, and this is basically for questions or concerns that are not on today's agenda. So Haley, let me just first ask you, do we have more than the one comment from Tina?
Yes, we do have Ted Key that would also like to speak.
Okay, so first off, we have, just a moment, please. I meant to have this at my visual before the meeting started. So I have a little timekeeper here. So Tina, go right ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, President Farmer. Thank you, Haley. Couple of things. First of all, I checked in with Haley because I've always had trouble with these Zoom meetings. So I checked in earlier and I left my computer on because I didn't want to lose what I had. And I was a little bit disturbed by some of the directors prior to the meeting, about 12 minutes before the meeting, discussing an item that I don't think they had any business. The public list could hear them. This was Director Pearson and Director Steidel. I mean, you know, you're supposed to be professionals. I really don't appreciate this kind of thing happening. And then Haley reminded you that the public could hear you. I was one of the public that heard you. Please refrain. You're so good about telling everybody else how to do things professionally. Let's hear it. Let's see it happening with you guys. So that, I wanted to bring that to your attention. And the other item is President Farmer said that you were going to be addressing in a future agenda item. I looked back to see when we last did that. It was April 26, 2018. I've got the full agenda packet for that meeting. We need to get to that and we need to straighten it out. And I will be digging in deeper if we don't get some resolution to this where we are not violating Brown Act Standing Committee meetings. And so I'm not, and we need to get it resolved. So I hope you will take care of this on an agenda item coming up soon. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
President.
It is on an agenda for one of the 2 meetings in June. Okay.
President Farmer, I'm sorry. Tina's audio was a little bit garbled and I missed what the topic was.
I think she was, when she, you know, at first I was going to ask her to repeat herself, but I believe she was addressing the Brown Act, the alleged Brown Act violation, and then she came back to it. So I think that what we didn't hear was what that was.
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure, but you know, we could ask her to repeat it, but I think we're fine. I think we got the gist of what she was saying. And thank you so much, Tina, for your comment. And Ted Key, go right ahead, Ted.
Good afternoon, directors and staff. Something that's kind of come up for me again here, and I know that you folks have discussed this before, but I'm seeing a good number of lots, a lot of them, in fact, with tremendous growth on them. And you know, it makes me very nervous when I see so much of this growth and we're still far away from July 15th. I'm wondering if it's time for the board and all to be considering maybe 2 mowings a year, or something else to deal with the growth that we're seeing here. It's really considerable this year. I mean, I've whacked the weeds around my area, but and I've seen a lot of people mention this on Nextdoor, issues with these lots. And I know it's a real problem, but I know I'm going to bring it up tomorrow in policy standing, but I just thought I would kick that out there for you guys to be thinking about it as you're driving around. Take a look and see how high some of these grasses are. So I do think it's something to be considered again. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Ted. I seem to recall that this item came up last year as well, and Chief Hollingsworth gave us an explanation as to the limitations as well as the value of doing 2 mowings a year. So perhaps, Chief, you could address this issue once again.
Hello again. Yes, we are bound by the confines of what we enforce, and that's the health and safety code. And that is what we justify the declaration of the weed nuisance that occurs in this community. We did so a couple of months ago. All of the notices went out, and people have to be given, as much as I would like to see it maintained year round, they have to be given an adequate amount of time to respond, to get the work done. It has to pass at the time of inspection, and we have to pick a time during the year. And the best time based on the annual growth stuff is during the beginning of summer. We've identified July 15th this year based on some criteria that we normally look at. And so people are actually out mowing now, secondary to the notices they received in the mail. The people and we notice, and we advise everyone of this as they call in and have questions, it has to pass at the time of inspection, but it means that there's many that are out cutting right now, that there's going to be a significant regrowth. And so those people are registering that cut with us, so we make sure that they get credit for doing that. But I may have to be reaching back out to them again at the time of the official inspection to make sure that it passes. And that's why we have people turn that information in as necessary. All of the local abatement contractors give us lists as they go throughout the year. And at any point, if those parcels fail in that process, I'm able to go back to the abatement contractor and have them fix the parcel again at his own expense. So it's not a perfect system, but it's the best way we have at the moment to be able to move forward and get this work done.
All right, thank you so much, Chief. I hope that that was a satisfactory answer for Mr. Key, as well as other members of the community he's spoken with that have this concern. So thank you, Chief. All right, moving on to item 4 and board member committee and liaison reports. And we'll go to 4A. By the way, Haley, it just dawned on me. Am I supposed to be asking you to do this, or am I just supposed to be doing it myself? I don't know why I'm just kind of spacing out on that.
No, you can go ahead and continue.
Thank you. All right. So board member committee and liaison reports, and it looks like the president's report is up first. So first, I want to take just a brief moment to acknowledge the various organizations and the businesses that continue to meet the food needs of the economically challenged in our community. And we've got the Lions Club, we've got the Rotary Club, and like I said, the various restaurants are involved. I happened to be at the food bank, by the way, the food bank distribution on May 7th at the Catholic Church, and there were over 100 vehicles that were present there, and the occupants obviously in need of not just food assistance. I spoke with some of them about needing help with regard to their water bill. So we discussed that, but also a number of these folks addressed the concern of how they felt they were going to be able to pay their rent in the future. Some of them are getting, some accommodation from their landlord. Some of them are unable to do that. So in recent weeks, last couple of weeks or so, I've spoken with members of our community with hopes of maybe raising money by donations from local residents and coordinating energies in one way or another to somehow give money to individuals and families and perhaps even businesses who might need help in paying rent or even paying their mortgage. I didn't have much success in this, but I have discovered that there are a number of organizations in the county who have gotten together, joined their forces, and they're endeavoring to create what they call a rent and mortgage relief fund. So if anyone in this community would like to help create a local branch of the Rent and Mortgage Relief Fund, or if you would like to donate money, I know we have some fairly well-off people in this community financially, and any donations obviously would be much appreciated. So if anyone would like to join me in, like I say, organizing a Rent and Mortgage Relief Fund, you can drop me an email at hfarmer@cambriacsd.org, and my email is also at our district website. So also, I want to make mention of the fact that the county mobile unit that does testing for COVID-19 is going to be available at the Veterans Hall here in town on Monday and Tuesday, June 1st and 2nd. Now, I'm not quite sure of the times right now, but I can tell you that there's going to be 120 tests a day. You need to make an appointment. The information is probably going to be available. I know in listening last night to the NCAC meeting that the discussion was that this notice is probably going to be available on Cambria Open Forum, as well as next door, most likely the Healthcare District website as well. Hopefully we can post this on our website, this information, and it's also going to be on the community information page, cambriaca.org. So that's pretty much my report with regard to how to discuss how could we say it, the challenges facing the community and the district with regard to the finances of the district. I'll be making a comment on this in future agenda items. So moving forward now with item 4B and the Finance Committee report, and Director Steidel.
Thank you, President Farmer. Excuse me, President Farmer, are you by chance moving papers across your keyboard or near your microphone? Yes, like that. It was just some static, and sometimes it covers what's being said.
That's just the electricity from me. Sorry.
I should have known. I will defer the information about the review of the Finance Committee relative to the rates increase to that item as we go to it. As any information for the review that was performed is, I'm sure, will be addressed as part of conversations that go on with that. But we did, in fact, get a review of the package this last time at our meeting, and there was a recommendation that was passed from the committee. It was not unanimous to go forward with the rates with a 1 month or 1 billing period lag on its implementation. And that is what I have for the report, President Farmer.
Thank you very much, Director Steidel. Next, we have the Policy Committee report and Director Howell.
Thank you. This one is going to be mercifully brief. The Policy Committee has not had its official meeting since our last board meeting. So at this point, I think it suffices. Our meeting will be next week. And just to let people know what's on our agenda and to remind people that are out there listening that there might be items of interest that they might wish to, attend. That meeting will be next Friday at 10 o'clock via Zoom. On our, what we are currently working on is the email retention policy. And then as a result of the last board meeting, that's been expanded to incorporate the whole general issue of the records retention policy of the district. We are currently, and I'm hoping actually, that we may have some verbiage to bring back to you at one of our next month's meetings regarding a process, a suggested process for filling vacancies on the board of directors. Let me see. In addition, although I don't think we're going to have verbiage for you yet, there will be some discussion regarding that we had the issue of correspondence to the board, and the question then is, well, who's responsible for answering any of that correspondence, which is when it's directed to the board as a whole. So we hope that we'll get some clarity and maybe at least maybe have some questions regarding that one. In addition, again, we will be discussing but not actually formulating a policy regarding, in addition to what the district already has regarding people who are experiencing homelessness. And then something which I think we will be able to discuss and pass on to you at one of your next meetings will be the issue of reimbursement of committee members' expenses at certain issues. I think that was something that was brought forth and that needed to be, what we have is we'll have a short policy which we'll put in a nice place where it won't get forgotten. And when the time comes to create the bylaws for the committees, then we can incorporate that, but at least we'll have it documented and ready to go and presumably blessed by the board at that time. So we have a lot of work on our plate, but everyone seems to be enthusiastic about it. And I think we are adjusting to this environment with this virtual environment. It's still, this next meeting will only be our second in this format. So we're still kind of working through it. Again, let me just close by, today I see that we have a huge number of people attending. I wish I could put something more controversial on a policy committee's meeting so we could have such a wonderful attendance. But anyway, I do invite people out there. It's free and the camera's not on. You got, the public, so you can appear in your pajamas and come and listen to us talk 10 o'clock on next Friday. Thank you.
Well, thank you, John, and be grateful you don't have anything tremendously controversial happening at policy committee meetings. You don't, if you get what you ask for, it might not be a good thing. Moving forward to item 4D and the Resources and Infrastructure Committee report. And Director Pearson, go right ahead.
Thank you, President Farmer. I'm going to go over the committee report, but there'll also be a copy of it attached to the minutes. I made a written report along with Vice Chair Dean. We held a special meeting on April 22nd to review the proposed contract for the consultant for the UWMP and pass that. That was one action we did. The committee and staff has produced an updated CIP list, which is part of this month's packet. It's in there. I think it's very well done. It's color coded so you can see what progress we're making on using the monies from the rate increase to actually get some stuff done that we needed done. I think it's a very good document and we're going to continue to update that. The next live meeting we have in the Vets Hall, we will make them into big boards and have them posted so that people can see them live and up close. The ad hoc committee on water finished a draft report on water demand and supply that I think will be helpful to the UWMP consultant. And that document is available on the CCSD website. The ad hoc committee is going to kind of take a sabbatical here and wait for the staff to finish getting their work done on the retrofit and conservation program points log, and then they'll continue to update their report to include that information. I would really like to commend the committee members, Brad Fowles, Karen Dean, and Tom Gray, for their excellent work on this report. They really did an outstanding job and did a great job of gathering information. And at the end of the report are all the references of where they got the facts that they cite continually throughout that report. The ad hoc committee on offsite storage has concluded that they cannot continue their work until the usable production quantity of the EWS SWF is more firmly established. In other words, we need to run the thing so we can find out exactly how much water it makes in an 8-hour day, so that then we can extrapolate that. And from that, we can then tell how much extra storage we might need, and then we can go forth from there with that committee. The ad hoc committee on producing informational videos is also on sabbatical. They're waiting until the stay-at-home recommendation has been lifted, and then they'll get back to work on that stuff. There will be a meeting of our staff and some of the R&I people with PG&E on June 2nd, and it'll be an update of the IGA progress. So we'll be posting that information out on the website, I'm sure, so that if people want to attend that, I think that'll be a Zoom meeting as well as an in-person meeting by some of the PG&E people with our staff. One thing that I'd like the board to consider, Vice President Steidel brought up to me that there is a on-demand webinar developing a groundwater sustainability program out on the CSDA website. And I think it would be good, because of our ongoing work on both the coastal development permit and also on the urban water management plan, that some of the board members might want to look at that webinar. It's $55 per person to do that. I've already had a request from Vice Chair Dean to watch it, and they say it's okay for her to do so, but they're going to charge her $85 to watch that particular video. But I'd like permission from the board to expend that $55 per board member if any board member would like to do so.
How should we be responding to this, David? I mean, maybe there's a way that two board members can get together at the same location and save some money there. Is that possible?
Yeah, as long as they can stay 6 feet away, I guess.
Right. Well, that's a given. All right. Well,
yeah, that's possible. And I guess maybe it's a future agenda item that on the consent agenda, just to allow the directors to charge that $55, or if they want to do it on their own, they could possibly do it on their own. So.
All right. Thank you.
Would you like me, President Farmer, would you like me to go ahead and do my liaison reports at this time?
Go right ahead, David. You can do anything you want, buddy.
Well, I'm on a roll here.
You are.
Okay, so last night I attended most of the NCAC meeting. They installed new board members and officers. Mike Lyons is the new chair of that committee, and Iggy Fedorov is the vice chair. They had a lot of new people join that group and had a really good meeting. The one highlight, I guess, was Supervisor Gibson gave a report on the opening of some of the COVID restrictions in San Luis Obispo County. Yesterday morning, apparently, the state gave the county the permission to go ahead and implement some of their opening of the county and allow some in-house dining and also some in-house retail sales. There are a lot of restrictions on both of those, and you need to go out to the website and look at those. Those are out at readyslow.org. And the other one that he did mention was that the public health officer also had a new restriction on hotels and motels where they are only supposed to be 50% occupied. And that's try to cut down a little bit on the tourist trade and make it only accessible to those people who really need to have those rooms. So that was basically the NCAC report. I don't have a real report on the Fire Safe Focus Group, other than we will have a meeting in June, on June 10th. It will probably be a Zoom meeting at this point. And we're making preparations for a chipping day, which will go in conjunction with cleaning up the town from some of the material that easily burns. We'll also be talking about grants and that chipping day. So that meeting will be June 10th, Zoom at 3 p.m. And I'll be sending out a notice on that one also. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, David. So we have other liaison reports. Let me see. So, yes, General Manager Weigold.
I just have one quick correction on President Pearson's report, and that is on the PG&E conference or workshop on June 2nd. That will not be a public meeting. That's a working session with staff, and a couple of directors will be attending as well there.
All right, thank you.
Okay, someone probably needs to refresh my memory. Are there any ad hoc committee reports that need to take place? Yes, Director Rice. Need to unmute yourself, please.
I just wanted to make a brief report from the CDP ad hoc committee. We did have a couple of meetings this week. One to prepare for a meeting with the with Coastal Commission staff and county staff related to the CDP, and then we had a follow-up meeting. As some of the public may be aware and the board is aware, we will be bringing the project description once it's been thoroughly revised based on feedback we've gotten from both county and coastal staff and various other pieces of information. We will be bringing that to the board and having the public have a chance to speak publicly on it, because it'll be a public hearing. Which is one of the things I'd like to see happening is get us on track to have some public meetings like the Planning Commission meeting, so the public can hear issues that we're working on. Right now, the current work that we're doing has made some significant changes to the draft that was in place. And there will be a few things that the staff needs direction on from the board, and those are the kinds of things we will be discussing when we have that meeting. It was originally envisioned to happen next week, but we're not quite there yet. There's a few more things that we need to get resolved. So I just want to reassure the board and the public we are actively working on this and getting to a point where we've got there's going to be some issues. Not everybody's going to be happy. That's the nature of politics and doing things as a community. But there's a few more little parts that we need to deal with, and then we need to get direction from the full board for a couple questions relating to some of the concerns that Coastal Commission has expressed. But I think we also helped resolve some of the questions that they had during our meeting, and I would like to report to the public that our staff that were there for the meeting, which includes General Manager Weigold, Mr. Dienzo, and Ms. Bland, did an excellent job considering all three of them are brand new to this project, and getting caught up on such a complicated project is not an easy thing to do. So I just wanted to commend them and let the public know. I think that we did have a very productive meeting, and that our new staff people are really on top of. There's still a lot to learn for all of us, but they're really on top of it, and I think that we made some progress in terms of issues that keep being raised by Coastal regarding the draft. So I also just wanted to briefly mention, because I know there's a prior draft kind of wandering around town that was part of a records request to the county, and that draft is out of date. So if there's people that have concerns about it, they may be concerns that have already been dealt with. And when we have the new revision, we'll get a chance to see that. But I just wanted to put that out there, because I know the county did respond to a public records request, and I wanted to make sure the public is aware that's not what we're currently working on. It's an old draft. That's why we need to be revising it, because so we're working on doing that. So was there anything else that I missed, Director Pearson?
No, I would just like to again thank both the staff and the Coastal Commission and County for the meeting. It was very done in a very cooperative and collaborative way, and we made a lot of progress. And I think there's going to be some really good results out of it. We do, President Farmer, need to reschedule the meeting, because the staff has a considerable amount of work that they need to do along with the county to do revisions, and they're really not going to be able to get it done by next Thursday. So I think we were talking about maybe moving it to June 25th, which is the last Thursday in June.
Right.
And we'll have everything done by then, and that also allows the staff to have it done and published about a week ahead of time. The draft will be, so that everybody will have ample time to look at it, review it, and prepare for the meeting on the 25th. So at some point during our meeting, I guess we need to go ahead and change the date of that meeting if the board agrees.
Well, General Manager Weigel could tell you this, but at yesterday's agenda review, we did postpone next week's meeting and moved it forward to June, I believe it is the 25th, yes. So just to let you know.
Super, thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to try to, as briefly as possible, give a couple of reports here. First, from the Forest Committee. There was a brief discussion with regard to the undeveloped parcels that the district has that we obtained from the Slow Land Conservancy. The fact that, there's been some confusion with regard to maybe people in town thinking that they can purchase these lots from the district, as well as staff members feeling that, well, maybe we can sell these to members of the public to raise funds for the district. And hopefully we have some clarity on that neither of those can happen. Also, there was a discussion on how to obtain funding, and this has happened in the past, to find an impartial expert to assess the health of the forest. And this has come up in the past, well, like I said, with regard to hiring a forest manager. But once again, it's just discussion. And then also, it's been observed on the Fiscalini Ranch, and I'll be doing a report from FFRP momentarily, that there's an outbreak of dwarf mistletoe on the ranch. And this is occurring, like I say, probably elsewhere in our community, and it spreads from tree to tree. I would imagine Carlos is no doubt working on that out there on the ranch. On the plus side, with regard to the ranch, there's far more ferns, and I walk there basically every week for decades now, and there's far more ferns visible now than I think I can recall in a long, long time. So that's a delight. If you happen to be going out on the ranch, take time to slow down your pace and appreciate the beauty of the ferns. With regard to, okay, my apologies, here we are. with regard to FFRP. The report from Carlos, the ranch manager. He's been extremely busy. They've been cutting down a number of dead trees behind homes and along trails. They received over $20,000 from the Fire Safe Council for tree removal. Well, the goal was to remedy any hazards that might take place. So they left stags for bird habitat, and they used the rest for wood chips at the dog park. Also, they're doing weed abatement and fire at the fire breaks, and leaving as much natural vegetation as possible. They've mowed trails 3 times to provide for physical distancing. They've also removed invasive plants such as thistle radish and mustard and so forth. And they've also done weed whacking around the many benches. With regard to what they're also trying to do right now is get greeters. They had kind of a run through this past weekend for greeters being at both the north and south entrances of the ranch to remind the folks of social distancing, to remind them that the trails on the bluff trail and to some degree on the fire break are all one way. So we're hoping that people will observe that. It's going to be a busy weekend. And there we are. Also, they've been asking for volunteers to do the greeting. So hopefully that's been working out. Probably the most important discussion that took place, well, excuse me, let me back up. They're having a development plan report to promote the ranch, both here in the community and elsewhere, to let folks know why the ranch, most of us already know, why the ranch is important, why there's a need to support the ranch financially, reminding people that the ranch stayed open during the shutdown of the past couple of months, where other areas in our county were closed down because there wasn't enough cooperation from the folks that were visiting. We were fortunate that that did take place. And then finally, there was a discussion of the financial asset management. And so they have investments with 2 or 3 different, I don't know what the term is, where you have a service that invests your money. So they're a little bit disappointed in how things have been. And so they're hoping for a more long-term look as to what is going to be arriving for FFRP financially, because presently they don't have an income. They're currently digging into their reserves and they need to remedy this ASAP. So that's from FFRP. And if I could, and my apologies for doing this, but getting back to the report, the very excellent report that Director Pearson mentioned that took months to prepare. I don't know how many hundreds of hours. I think it was about 3 or 4 months that it took to prepare with regard to water usage, water available, water storage, and that type of thing. And Tom Gray, Karen Dean, and Brad Fowles did an excellent job. But I found some items here, and I'm sorry to be taking up time when I know we've got important items coming up on the agenda. But I just wanted to run this by folks who might not take the time to read, the agenda packet that I found interesting. So first off, I want to make mention of this. So these are statistics and so forth that were in the report from the R&I committee, ad hoc committee. So first off, the census of there's a census taken in 2018, and it found that 34% of the homes in Cambria are vacant. Now, year-round, part-time, that type of thing, but basically vacant year-round. Now, I recall reading about this issue, in the Cambria, let's say about 20, 25 years ago. At that time, it was about 24%. Yeah, and it slowly crept up. You get a report in the paper, it's in the higher 20s. Well, now it's 34%. So I'm just going to offer this, food for thought. What does this imply regarding the future of our town with regards to who lives here? And of course, who won't be able to live here as more structures, more homes become vacation rentals. Also, I want to bring up the fact that, and this is another interesting statistic, once again in 2018, it was found that the population of our community is 5,725 people. Well, it used to be 6,100. So we might wonder, well, why are there fewer, almost 300 fewer people living here than there were not that long ago? So either folks have moved away for various reasons, and I've talked with some of those people. I won't get into their reasons, or maybe folks have passed away. But it seems as if, once again, vacation rentals, so we don't have as many people living here full time, could be the situation that exists. Also, with regard to water usage, it's interesting that, once again, residential usage is 64%, but commercial and vacation rental usage is 33%. So obviously there are far more residents in our community than there are vacation rentals and businesses, yet the businesses, including the vacation rentals, are using roughly a third of the water that's used here in the community. And then finally, per capita use has obviously declined. And we can thank the residents, especially back during the time of drought where people cut back on their water usage. Residents have cut back. It's remained roughly the same with regard to the businesses, including the vacation rentals, during that time. So I just want to make a comment with regard to what's on the horizon on this, in this community, in this country, on this planet, but especially here in the Western United States, and that includes us. And this is what's happening. It's a trend that is not going to change. We're going to have hotter temperatures. We're going to have lower rainfall. We will most likely have less water available in the future for the residents of Cambria. So no matter how much we cut back, and the majority of people have cut back, usage has gone up since the initial, let's say, reduction of usage 4 or 5 years ago. It's increased a bit, about 25%. I'm just encouraging folks, and I know we're all doing the best we can to do our best. And also, with regard to vacation rentals, encouraging people, especially the realtors out there, the owners of vacation rentals, to encourage the people that you have visiting or you're making money off of that, to encourage them to use less water and realize that there's a dilemma on the horizon. In case you weren't consciously thinking about it, that's where we're at. So I hope you don't mind me bringing up those items there, just basically food for thought. And now if I can just get back to the next item on the agenda, item 5, and the
It looks like somebody has their hand up, President Farmer.
Thank you very much, Director Rice. And that looks like Director Howell. Director Howell, thank you so much.
Thank you. Actually, Director Steidel had her hand up before me.
Well, that's what I get for reading without looking at what's going on in front of me. So,
I forgot what I say. So maybe if she goes, maybe I'll remember by the time she's finished.
All right, Director Steidel, go right ahead.
Thank you, President Farmer. I have 2 ad hoc reports if you'd like to entertain them.
Oh, okay. Well, I had, I'm sorry. I thought I had asked for those before. So my apologies. Go right ahead.
There are 2, one that relates to a later agenda item that we have, the 7B. Myself and Director Pearson had been an ad hoc committee that had been tasked with reviewing the response to requests for proposal that had been put out for the services associated with assisting us in strategic planning. And we had made that review of all of the proposals that came in, and there were a number of them. But it was very obvious immediately that there was one in particular that didn't have a lot of fluff associated with it and cut directly straight to the point. And so both
Director Steidel, my apologies for interrupting, and if I'm out of line, let me know. But since what you're about to tell us is an agenda item that's coming up for discussion, perhaps you can just provide us the information at that point in time, since we'll be addressing that item. And then not only will the directors hear it, but the people that'll still be in attendance will hear it, and we can get it at that moment. Hope you don't mind me mentioning that.
Well, I would like to continue with a portion of it since there was quite a bit of time put towards some other things that weren't necessarily associated with an ad hoc report previously. So I just wanted to indicate that the recommendation that we had made was passed to staff, and the result of that recommendation is what we're going to be reviewing on item 7B later. Is there anything additionally, Director Pearson, that you want to add to that?
No, not at this time. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. The other one had to do with the Affordable Housing Ad Hoc Committee. And Director Howell, would you like to make comment about the status regarding that?
I think Director Seidel, you had a good grasp of that, and I just assume that you have the floor. If you go ahead.
All right. There has been some forward progress, and that took the form of Ray Danzo, Mr. Danzo from our staff, and also Melissa Bland having an opportunity to interact in concert with the Planning Commission representatives and with the Coastal Commission staff out of the Santa Cruz office to have conversations about the position that the county had regarding the suggestions that we had for our affordable housing program, and what the coastal position feedback had been in conversations that Mr. Danzo and Ms. Bland had with them previously. So it was a very successful meeting, and feedback from those two individuals in that it provided the opportunity for each of those two parties to understand exactly what the need or expectation was of the other, and it should help a great deal in our being able to move that part of the business that we're trying to achieve forward. And so that's it as far as that committee meeting is concerned, or that ad hoc report is concerned, unless you have something to add, Director Howell.
Seems like that covered it pretty well. The only thing I'd say is that the general sense I got from our last meeting is that there's a positive movement in a good direction. So I was very pleased. There are a couple of other ad hocs. I don't know the Tyler Encode ad hoc. That's probably more appropriate for Ms. Duffield to talk about later in the finance manager's report. And the other one, President Farmer, what about the schoolhouse? Should we mention something about that?
Well, go right ahead. I think you were a little bit more involved with Ms. Stewart there this past week than I was. So go right ahead, please.
Okay. Well, part of the lease agreement that we have is that the CSD has to be involved as the plans are brought forward and as the project progresses. And so since President Farmer and I were still the liaison for this, President Farmer decided it was appropriate for us to continue in that until the board decides otherwise. So the plans were brought forth where are we now? It was early on this week. And so I looked at them, and then I saw nothing amiss that we as directors should be concerned about. I have to tell you, I was rather impressed. There's a huge amount. There's some flood control issues that apparently are new from the county. So there's a tremendous amount of grading and all kinds of planning as to how the stormwater can be handled on that area. It was quite impressive. The plans look very good. It looks to me that all the I's are being dotted and the T's crossed. So our President Farmer and my recommendation was that Ms. Stewart just go ahead and proceed by carrying those drawings to General Manager Weigold and through him to the appropriate utilities people, because they're the ones that really have to review the plans and make sure that it's all very reasonable, and that because I think one of the things there was an issue about the laterals, and that the Historical Society was going to pay for those, as I recall. at any rate, it all looks good, and our involvement is just from the sidelines, just making sure that everything proceeds as promised, and it looks to me that that is happening. So we may see some movement on that. It's kind of disturbing to pass the schoolhouse and just see it sitting there all lonely with its cupola off. I would say probably within the next 3 or 4 months, maybe we'll actually see some progress there. So it was nice to see that things are going forward. It's just a complicated procedure, and there's actually a lot of issues involved. So it's nice to see that happening.
Thank you very much, Director Howell. Moving forward, and somehow I feel like, am I usurping you, Haley, here at all? I feel like I am, that you should be. Why don't you step in, Haley, since we've arrived at item 5, and I think you're supposed to be saying something here. So
I am. I do have a member of the public that wishes to speak back at board member committee and liaison reports.
Oh, okay. And who would that person be?
It's Tina Dickinson.
All right. Well, thank you. And Tina, go right ahead.
Thank you, President Farmer. I've actually been trying to get through on several of these committee reports. The first one was with Director Steidel. She said that there was not a unanimous consent on their vote that they took regarding the rate increases, and she didn't state what the vote was, but it was 3-2. On another item that I specifically, I really want to make very clear that the public records request that I made to a state agency for the most recent updated draft of the CDP was not from the county. It was from the Coastal Commission, and it was dated April the 8th. It is the most recent that I believe is in-house right now. So I just want to correct that. What I put on next door is not from the county, and I want to make that very clear. Also, I would like to make clear that whenever I ask state agencies or county agencies for a public records request, I always get a response. And the response is positive, and I get what I want. When I asked the district for this information, I was denied. I don't know why. It's public information, folks. I mean, the sooner we realize that and are more transparent, the better off we'll all be. The Coastal Commission has been telling the district since July of 2014 that they have to deal with ESHA issues and they have to do an in-stream flow study. 6 years almost. The third item they're asking for is what you guys want to do with the decommissioned pond. How much longer beyond the 6 years do Cambrians have to wait for this district to get its act together and stop fooling around and let's just get this thing done? I am sick. I am public comment, President Farmer. I am sick and tired of this nonsense, and so is the rest of the community. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Ms. Dickinson, well, thank you so much for your comments, except that I thought you were addressing something from a liaison report.
I believe she was responding to the ad hoc CDP committee report, because I did make mention of the draft of the project description. So I just wanted to be clear. I think she was commenting appropriately.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Director Rice, for calming me down. Thank you. So yes, Director Howell.
Normally we don't respond to public comment, but in this particular case, since Director Rice and Ms. Dickinson seem to have a different view as to what is actually out there, can we have clarification from Director Rice on this? I'd like to hear a response to Ms. Dickinson's claim that she has the most current copy.
The most current copy would be the one that's currently on Mr. Dienzo's desk for revision. And the California Public Records Act allows, and Mr. Carmel can correct me if I'm incorrect here, but that drafts of documents that are not completed are not subject to disclosure if another agency has a document that's responsive and they don't see it as a draft because it's not their work, it was work that was submitted to them. She has the most current one that is dated April 8th from the Coastal Commission, but that's not what our staff is currently working on as part of their draft and revision work on the CDP project description specifically. We're not trying to hide the ball. We are trying to get it done. I just wanted to be clear that whether it's April 8th or March or February, right now is when we're working on revisions. So I wasn't trying to make accusations. I just was trying to be clear that the draft that's out there is likely not going to be the same thing that people are going to see once we publish this for the board to have a discussion about. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. And the reason I asked is only because I've been receiving considerable correspondence regarding the draft. And so I just need to get clear and to make sure that everyone is clear as to that. I just want to be sure your message came across correctly. And for me, myself, that I understand. Thank you.
General Manager Weigold, you wish to make a comment?
Yes, Mr. President. As the new guy in this group here on the CDP, I can add some color for the public on why does the CDP take 6 years? Well, the reason is there are so many views on it. The coastal has a view. The county, who technically is the submitting agency, not us, they have a view. We have a view. The staff has a view. The board has a view, and the community has a view. And we're trying to meld all this together. And part of this is interpretation of law from all those different viewpoints. It's a really, really complex negotiation between all those parties. So we did respond to Ms. Dickinson's request for records, and that's on page 28 of today's package. But this is all a draft until it's not. And so it probably does seem really confusing to the outside observer, but this is really complex, and there are so many different issues and different interpretations thereof. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager Weigold. Mr. Carmel, you wish to make a comment?
I just wanted to remind the board this is not an agenda item. It's a response to a public comment, and it needs to be abbreviated. At this point, it's over.
Got it.
Thank you.
So I can't make a comment? I just want to respond to what Mr. Weigold said with regard to various agencies and having a difference of opinion as to how to put this all together. And then you mentioned board. Well, I think you could say we have differences of opinion on the board with regard to this as well. So I just want to throw my 2 cents in there. All right. Haley, did you,
Public comment.
I don't think we're moving any further on this one, obviously. So moving on to item 5, would you like to introduce this, or should I continue to just barrel through here? My apologies.
You're doing a great job, so why don't you continue?
You have been doing a great job. Okay, so here we are at item 5 on page 26, and the general manager's report. And Mr. Weigold, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Still a lot going on during this time. I put a little in my report, a little summary of some of the things we're doing for staff, but the bottom line is the staff continues to do its work on a daily basis. Thankfully, I can tell you that in the board that all staff is healthy. No one yet has been affected by the virus. We're continue to utilize all kinds of workarounds and changes in our operations to keep everybody healthy. That includes social distancing at work, 1 person per vehicle, maintaining for the fire department the same crews that are together for multiple days. And we're now transitioning, as the county is, of course, into opening up of the economy and relaxation of some of the rules we've been operating under. So to that end, we're continuing to think about and plan for accepting customers, for example, back at admin. We don't know when that's going to be, but we're putting in place procedures that'll help us do that safely, both from a customer standpoint and for the staff. One of my key areas I keep in the back of my head is that we're very, very limited on staff. We don't have overlap of people, so that, for example, when one of the finance, or if one of the finance members were to go out sick for a couple of weeks, it has a major impact on how we operate there. So we're carefully working through all those issues to make sure, first of all, the staff members feel comfortable and safe, but also that we're keeping interaction with the public safe as well. A couple of things from my report to call out. One is we had a ransomware attack a couple of weeks ago. That was impact to our Windows 7 machines. This was already a pre-identified issue through our IT vendor. And in fact, the Monday after the Thursday night event, we had 6 new computers delivered to utilities department as part of that change out. It was just 3 days short of, or 3 days too short of the change out. But this is something we've been planning for, but we were trying to work through our budget over in transitioning all these computers over. And we're now at the very end of that. So the important part is our vendor was really on top of this. We've been backing up every 2 hours. So the attack was at 8 o'clock. We simply used our 6 p.m. backup and reloaded all the machines over the weekend. So we were all ready to be back up and running on Monday. But it was it's good to know that our systems worked. Interestingly, Los Osos was attacked that same night, almost at the same time. So obviously somebody had identified to attack special districts that night. Maybe that was on their agenda. As President Farmer, as you noted, I've been coordinating a pop-up test location. We tentatively have identified the Veterans Hall to do that testing for COVID-19 for anyone that's interested. This will be paid for either through your insurance, and if you're not covered through insurance, it'll be free. There's still some details with the contract, I believe, being worked out. And we're looking, I think the county who is running this is still working on assembling the right number of volunteers to man that. This is not a drive-through event. This is physically go into the Vets Hall and get tested. And to see how this whole system works, I went out personally to Paso Robles to do this testing myself and see how the testing facility worked. It's not the most comfortable test, I will tell you. It's pretty miserable. I thought it was just a swab in your nasal, but it's pretty deep. It's pretty uncomfortable. And at the end, they tell you that the test results are not infallible. So it could be a false negative. I was a negative test, but that was for that day until I made more contact with other people and things. So, but we'll be open for that 1 and 2 June. That's again run by the county. And then lastly, we've been working at a number of initiatives to increase our communications on social media. And we are finally up and running on Nextdoor in the past 2 weeks. Nextdoor previously did not allow public or commercial entities to have a presence. You had to be a resident only, or you couldn't establish an account. So, so they started early spring, late winter with a new capability on Nextdoor. So we signed up for that, And so we're now able there on Nextdoor to push out, in addition to our website, important notifications and announcements to the public.
Good.
You already covered the ranch. We expect another busy ranch this weekend. We're doing our best, working with the FFRP group, as you pointed out earlier, who are going to have some guides out there on the main entrances to the ranch to help assemble some rules there and educate people. The bottom line is we have a lot of visitors that are coming in either for the day or for overnight, and some of them obey the rules and some don't. It's frustrating. We're trying to work through it as best we can to allow everybody to enjoy the ranch. That concludes my report, pending any questions you may have.
I see Director Rice has her hand raised, so Amanda, go right ahead, please.
I'm glad we finally have a way to be posting on Nextdoor. I'm a little concerned that we don't have anything in place related to policy about who's going to post and what kinds of things are going to get posted. We will be getting a lot of comments, and I just want to be sure, at least until there's a policy in place, we have limited to whatever's being posted on the website or something like that, just so that it's clear. Also that responding to the public, are you going to be responding if there's questions from the public on a post that's posted? Or if somebody provides misinformation in one of the comments, are you going to respond? It's a very complex issue. So I just want to urge us to be paying attention to that and maybe keep it minimal until we can answer some of those naughtier questions, but naughty, KNOTT.
Director Rice, you're spot on as usual on that. Right now, I'm the only one that does any posting. If others post, that authority comes through me first, exactly word for word what we're going to post.
Okay. Good.
But it may be, in addition, it may be something, I know the policy board has quite a few items on their plate, but it may be worthwhile doing some research, and I'll take that on as the staff action first to do some research on what other districts are doing in that regard.
The Board of Supervisors did just pass recently a social media policy for the county, so that would be one place to look, I think at the beginning of this year.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Rice, for pursuing that topic.
President Farmer, just one other thing I did want to acknowledge. I see under the Facilities and Resources Manager, we've put out a hand sanitizing station at the dog park, and I just wanted to thank the staff for doing that.
Thank you. All right. Any further comments on the General Manager's report? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 5B and our...
President Farmer?
Yes, Ms. Dodson.
I do have a member of the public that wishes to speak.
On the General Manager's report?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not going to guess who it is. Who could it be?
Elizabeth Bettenhausen.
Oh! Ms. Bettenhausen, go right ahead.
Thank you very much, President Farmer. This morning I was reading the General Manager's report, including all the sections on utilities, and I sent an email to Mr. Dienzo and to the General Manager. I said, Ray, thank you for the work described in this paragraph on page 35 of the agenda for the Board of Directors today. That's 35 of your agenda board. On April 12th, it's a typo there of some sort, Utility Services, so this is what it says in the report. The Utility Services Associates began a leak detection program on our entire 67-mile domestic water distribution system. A typical 3-day process usually covers 10 to 13 linear miles of distribution transmission lines. However, beginning at the Marine Terrace area, we were able to complete nearly 20 linear miles in our first checks, almost a third of the entire system. While a few small service line leaks were revealed, we also found a medium-sized service leak that showed no surface indication and had been leaking for an undetermined period. The district will continue detection services for the remainder of the distribution system to repair any further failures causing water loss. End of quotation. I asked then 4 questions. Did the water department workers use a different procedure to check nearly 20 linear miles instead of the usual 10 to 13 over 3 days? What is the leak detection program now used? What caused this significant increase in efficiency? And what means are now used for, quote, detection services, end quote, that are 35 to 40% more efficient than in the past? Please address these questions in your report today. By the way, the CCSD website describes a 60-mile network of buried pipes instead of the 67 reported here for water distribution and 72 miles of gravity sewer pipeline. Thank you. That is my comment.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Bettenhausen. It would appear that some of that was directed more at Mr. D'Enzo than our general manager. And even though we haven't gotten to the utilities report yet, I hate to go out of line, but Ray, why don't you go ahead and why don't you go ahead and, well, I'll tell you what, why don't you'll just give a response to Ms. Bettenhausen if you choose to at your utilities report, okay? Is that all right? Okay, thank you. So let's move on to item 5B and the finance manager's report. I know you've been busy, Ms. Duffield. This is kind of a break from the action, so to speak. So let's hear from you. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, President Farmer, members of the board. Good afternoon. So I just have a little bit of updated information to provide on the implementation of the new financial system. As Director Howell mentioned, we are continuing our every other week meeting with Tyler Technologies. We did have a meeting just yesterday, and they informed us that they're unallowed to travel throughout the rest of this calendar year at this point. So in order to have our on-site data gathering that needs to take place for everything not utility billing, since we've already completed that portion, we're having to kind of strategize how we're going to do that. It's a lot of information sharing and gathering. So it's going to kind of be interesting how we do this in a virtual setting versus having one of their staff on here on site, you know, at our office. So we'll be working through that over the next couple of months and hopefully get something scheduled at the end of the summer or very early fall to get going on the general ledger side of the world. What we did talk about in length yesterday were our format for our bills. We have some options to select, to kind of go through and work with their staff to see what our new billing format would look like and what kind of options are available to us. You know, what is basically the vanilla model versus what's the model with all the extra add-ons that cost us money each month to maintain. So we'll be working through those, and then also what our check printing and our check stock currently looks like, and if they can accommodate that, or we're going to have to make some modifications. So we're trying to work through the things that we can while we're awaiting Tyler to assess how their operation is changing in the background while all this COVID no travel ban is happening in their company. So other than that, I don't have anything else to report other than what is in my written report. I don't have any additions, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any members of the board have any questions of Ms. Duffield? I don't see any. I just want to make a comment that it's rather discouraging to find that we're having to push further out with regard to trying to make you know, some ongoing or maybe permanent adjustments to some of the ratepayers with regard to lowering the bill that they pay for wastewater. If I'm not mistaken, Director Howell and I are that ad hoc committee, and hopefully at some point we'll be able to bring that to completion. And I don't know when that will be.
We currently have a wastewater reduction. We don't have a water reduction.
Water reduction, that's right. Thank you for the correction. All right. So moving on, Ms. Dodson, I see your face there. Why don't you introduce Mr. D'Enzo, please?
I actually have a public comment.
Okay.
And it's from Tina Dickinson, so I'm going to dial her in.
Okay, is this regarding Ms. Duffield's report? Is that it?
That's when she raised her hand.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Go right ahead, Tina, unmute yourself.
Gosh, there we are. Can you hear me?
You bet.
Okay, so in regards to Pam's report, this is a quick question and I hope it's not a difficult one, Pam. And I would just like to know, in the most recent billing cycle where the payments are due June 10th, what is the estimated revenue that you have been able to determine for the period of April through, from the period of April and May? And how does that compare to March and April, the billing, the revenue received?
Would you like me to answer the question, or am I not supposed to answer?
Well, why don't you give her a brief response, Ms. Duffield?
Okay, so for the January-February billing, we billed $1,120,000. And for the March-April billing, we had a lesser billing of $1,069,000. So we're down in our revenues approximately $50,000.
Hopefully that answers Ms. Dickinson's query and concern and question. So thank you, Ms. Duffield.
You're welcome.
Let's move on to item 5C and the utilities report. And Mr. D'Enzo, step right up, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Farmer. And I'll get to Ms. Bettenhausen's question when I get to the water portion of this report. But I'm just going to march right on through per the report that you have in front of you. So to sum up, we're still doing concentrating on projects that are more maintenance related due to COVID-19 restrictions. We've been taking advantage of less traffic, although those days are over. But we're still doing, practicing social distancing as best as we can. As you can see, there was some projects that we were working on within our wastewater plant. Unfortunately, the months kind of started out with a broken line, which is actually the water that we use throughout the plant for all kinds of, for the screw press, for hoses and sprayers, whatnot. So good thing it happened in-house. We were able to fix it right away. So that was one of the things that happened. Another big project that we did was relating to the PG&E, the IGA project. We're still moving forward with the design process on that. And one of the things that we needed to do was investigate the current 2 digester tanks, which have been repurposed now to effluent processing and sludge processing. We were able to use the truck, the Vector truck, once again to upstaging me, but the truck is very good. It did all that work, made it really easy for us. By the way, I do want to make mention too that the sewer video camera, which is the 3rd leg of our collection system maintenance program, we were able to order it based on board action that you all did last week. So that camera should be coming in a couple weeks. And so, but I'll give you a more detailed report on that when the time comes. So thanks for that. So one of the things though I wanted to point out, and I'll talk about it more when we talk about item 7C, is that we were wondering, part of the cleaning out of the digester tank is we wanted to inspect to see if we could repurpose it for some of the future projects that are identified in our PG&E IGA suite of projects. And the good news is that it can. So that is going to save the district significant amount of money. So because before it needed to be dismantled and taken out and then new tanks put in its place, we estimate that's probably saved a couple $1 million. So we're really excited about that. But regarding the future of that, the PG&E suite of project upgrades. Regarding the collection system now, I am pleased to announce too that we've finally hired our collection system maintenance workers. I want to introduce Ben Bivens and Tristan Reaper. They started last month and are doing a good job. They're getting up to speed. One of the things that we're starting to do right away is doing maintenance on all of our lift stations, cleaning all the lift stations, shrubbery and things around it, that sort of thing. But we're also doing some electrical, preparing our electrical system in view of a possible power safety shutdown, which they're still doing. Hopefully we won't see one, but we're going to be ready just in case it happens. So that's one of the big things that we did in our collection system was maintain those lift stations and then verify that our generators are going to be hooked up correctly. That's kind of like what the whole deal of the rotation of the lift stations are all about. It was basically that when we hook up our backup generator, that it's not going to short circuit it. So all of that was done during all of last month. So now to the water department. Some of the maintenance things that we did was raising fire hydrants. This is one of the things I think the chief brought about, where this is a collaboration that we have with them. Part of it is raising the fire hydrants to be sure that they're actually accessible and to be sure that the actual valving is accessible as well. During the course of several years, sometimes the valve cans get buried, and as mentioned in the report, there was one that was buried several inches underground, and we were able to locate it and raise it up to grade. So that's something that we also were doing all of last month. The issue with the leak detection. So our group, our staff have a leak detection equipment that are over 30 years old, which is good for some leak detection. But what we did, what made it, we hired a company that actually does this for a living. The equipment that they use are more advanced than what we have. And so the thing is, it's like there's two portions. There's leak detection that's easy for us to spot. For example, services that are shallow enough that sometimes the water bubbles up to the surface. Usually at that time, it's a bummer when that happens. But there's also leaks that we don't see because some of the distribution lines can be really deep. Some on the order of 4 feet deep to 8 to 10 feet deep at places. So this company uses a lot more advanced equipment. It's sonar based. So, I thought it would be cool to have our own equipment like this, but they're in excess of $100,000 for the whole system. But it's sonar based, so it's essentially, to put it very simply, it's the way the guys do this leak detection is that it's essentially like a giant stethoscope, into the system, where they listen very closely for leaks, and they have specialized equipment that's calibrated to pick up those sounds that the water makes when it leaks. So as mentioned in the staff report, they were able to identify a leak over near the Marine Terrace area. And yeah, and the cool thing about this is that they were able to find these leaks and able to do it quickly and more efficiently, because it's a company that's specialized in doing this particular type of work. And the good thing about it, though, is the first phase of it was less than $5,000 for the whole work, which is a great value. Trust me on that. It was a really good all around where we're able to identify these things. So so that's that. And then a couple of other items. We have a really fun story regarding the conservation report for the flume items. There's a story in the staff report about how one of our residents left their hose on, but the leak detection was able to pick it up and was able to deal with it right away. So, those are the kind of things that, we find out what a leak is before something bubbles to the surface, or millions of gallons or thousands of gallons are lost. So those are all good success stories for that. And then the well data and the groundwater data are available on the website. It's all updated. The well levels are trending average. And the production data, as compared from April of last year to April of this year, was down by a little under 16%. So there is definitely some less usage due to COVID. And then we also submitted a bunch of reports, and there were no violations of any sort. So all of that is also available on the staff report as well. But that's my report, and I'm open for any questions.
Well, before I ask for any questions or comments from board members, I don't know if I heard you correctly, perhaps not. You said there was less water usage due to COVID. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, we were down, compared to last April, we were down about 6.6 acre feet, which is about 16, like less than 16, a little less than 16% difference.
Right. So I would have imagined we would have anticipated something different with people being at home more, that they'd actually be using more water, especially since people have been encouraged to, wash their hands more and that type of thing. But apparently that's not the case.
Well, if I might, President Farmer, I think that it might have to do with the restaurants who have to use, for public health purposes, have to use dishwashers and a fair amount of water consumption in their usual business, which they were not conducting during April. So maybe it's more on the commercial than the residential side overall.
Thank you, Director Rice. That's one of the many reasons that we're grateful to have you on the board, to point out those things. Thank you.
Because I correct people. I don't know.
It was much needed right there. So thank you so much, Ray. Anyone else wish to make any comments with regard to Mr. D'Anzo? Looks like Director Rice wants to make one more.
Thank you, Ray, and I appreciate the comments made by Ms. Bettenhausen relating to the leak detection. This is exactly the kind of thing that should have been going on for the last several decades and hadn't been for whatever reason. So I'm very glad that you're on board and helping us get back up to speed and where we should be for best practices on our utilities. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just concur. Just the fact that Ms. Bettenhausen asked the question, what has caused improved efficiency? At least somebody has taken the time to notice that that's even taken place. So thanks for acknowledging something positive that's happening at the district, Elizabeth. All right. So moving along here, Haley, I'm kind of getting spaced out, or not spaced out, but could you just, like, shouldn't you be introducing like consent agenda kind of thing? Should you be doing that?
Typically, I do not do that, no.
No.
But I do have public comments for the utilities report.
Okay, thank you. I guess now, from now on, I know when you show up on the screen, it's for public comment, right?
Correct.
Okay, so go right ahead.
Okay.
And the winner is?
Tina Dickinson.
Okay. Go right ahead, Tina.
Actually, I'll spare you. I can't, I don't need to speak to you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Is that the collective you, I guess? Thank you.
I do have a second person, Elizabeth Bettenhausen.
All right. Thank you. Yes, Ms. Bettenhausen. Elizabeth, unmute yourself, please.
Mr. President, I would ask you please to confer to Mr. Dienzo my apology. I did not realize that the utilities manager report was a separate item in section 5. I assumed that utilities was in the general manager's report, as it has frequently been in the past, as you might recall. So Mr. Dienzo, if you're listening, I did not realize you were at the meeting, and if you're listening now, I really send my apology to you for assuming that I had not been able to address my comments to you. And I really am glad to hear about this improvement in leak detection. I applaud it. Even if the $5,000 goes up to $50,000, we will in the long run save a pile and a half of money, which is slightly larger than a bushel basket. Thank you.
Ms. Bettenhausen, if you're listening, I don't think there's any apologies necessary, and I'm sure I speak for Mr. Dienzo. Well, I'll let Mr. Dienzo speak for himself with regard to the comments made by Ms. Bettenhausen.
Apology accepted. No, I wish I can take credit for all of this, but no, it's Jim Green and his team have thought about this ahead of time, and they're the ones that deserve all the credit. So.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Ray. So moving on to item 6, do we have any public comment on the consent agenda, Ms. Dotson?
I do not have any public comments at this time.
Okay, so before we vote on approving the consent agenda, I just want to make a comment. Looking at the expenditure report, the total costs in April for the emergency water supply project, also known as the SWF, the district spent just a little over $14,700 and in various areas. So would anybody like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda? One more thing, excuse me. Yes, Director Rice.
I was just going to move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay.
And I'll second.
Okay, thank you. So before we do that, with regard to item 6D, and extending the position of Admin Tech 2, I'm wondering if we can, since this would have to be initiated for July through December, if we could maybe make this a regular agenda item at one of the meetings in June. Would anybody be opposed to that?
Are you asking to remove it from the consent agenda?
I am, and to have it discussed at one of the June meetings. Yes, Manager Weigold.
Yes, Mr. President, we have this item on here because the current contract ends June 2. So
okay.
We're looking for an extension on this correct, to continue the work.
Um,
All right. Well, then it doesn't appear that we can do that. We already have,
Chairman.
yes,
You can have this item pulled and put on our regular agenda for this meeting. That is in order. If you want to discuss it separately, you can have it pulled, but not postponed. When you pull it and it becomes a regular agenda item, we could talk about postponing it.
well, obviously we can't postpone it.
If you want a separate vote on it, then it should be pulled.
So, excuse me.
Yes, go ahead.
Farmer, is there,
Pardon me for my my hesitation here. Yes, go right ahead, Vice President Stidel.
just out of curiosity, if this position is for the individual who's populating the database?
Yes, and doing other work. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's an active, ongoing project.
Okay. Well, I'll just step back from that, and we'll just go ahead and vote on approving the consent agenda. So, Ms. Dodson, if you would do a roll call, please.
Ms. Duffield has her hand raised.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, Ms. Duffield. My apologies for not noticing.
That's fine. So maybe I'll just clarify this for you for your understanding. So we have a limited term position that's approved by our general manager currently. And in order to extend that past 6 months, the board is required to approve that extension. So we basically need the board to approve the extension from June 2nd to June 30th. And then we plan on bringing this to you later in June as part of a budget request for the new fiscal year.
Okay.
So maybe that helps you understand the need to do this now and what our plan would be going forward into the new fiscal year.
Well, thank you, because that's kind of what I wanted to discuss. So, Ms. Duffield, thank you for that clarification. It's much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Thank
It's just kind of a weird time right now because, you know, we're entering into things that kind of go into the next year's budget, but we don't really have a budget approved for next year. So this was the best that we could do given the circumstances.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being on top of this particular item and everything else that is under your purview of responsibility. So go, Ms. Dodson, please go right ahead and do a roll call, please.
I do have a member of the public that wishes to speak. Would you like me to bring them in now before I do the roll call?
Is it on the consent agenda?
Yes.
Did I already ask if there was public comment on the consent agenda?
You did at the very beginning. And the hand was
Well,
not raised at the time.
I guess since we're still on this item, go right ahead. Yes, and who's the lucky contestant?
Tina Dickinson.
All right. Tina, go right ahead. Tina? Tina, if you would unmute yourself and go ahead and speak on the consent agenda item of your choice. Ms. Dickinson? Kathy, why don't you go ahead and do a roll call vote, please?
Okay. Director Rice?
Aye.
Vice President Seidel?
Aye.
Director Howe?
Aye.
Director Pearson?
Aye.
President Farmer?
Aye.
President Farmer, can we take a 5-minute break?
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. And by the way, I've noticed that the number of participants has dropped off from 37 to 33. Sorry about that for you folks out there that it's understandable. You would want to just kind of step back and rejoin us, hopefully. So yeah, let's come back at 4 o'clock, and this meeting is no doubt going to go past 5 o'clock, and my apologies to all concerned. Thank you. Chiron, buddy.
Don, did you get a new hat?
No, it's the same one. Just looks different. How are you gonna do without?
Oh, too bright, too bright.
Exactly.
Well, Don, at least she didn't ask you if you got a new head.
There's an interesting idea.
Well, it's 4 o'clock and I see all members of the board have returned, and I'm sure even though I just see Ms. Dodson's name and Mr. Dienzo's name, I'm sure they're still available.
I am here.
Thank you, Haley. So with regard to regular business, we've moved the two items A and C. So General Manager Weigold, why don't you go ahead and introduce item 7C, please?
And Director Stidel, I think, has a question.
I'm just curious, in the display for the committee members, I see Ms. Dickinson's name displayed. Does that mean that she's logged in on the display for the board?
You're right.
I'm trying to remove her and it keeps telling me she'll be rejoining the webinar as an attendee, but I can't seem to remove her. So I sent her an email asking her to sign out and sign back in.
Well, you know, I know this is going to sound really weird, but while we were taking the break, I was thinking, you know, maybe Tina should reconsider being on the board since she's so involved and so active and so informed. And there she is.
There you are.
So, you know, well, I'm not going to make any further comment. Let's, so should we just, I appreciate you, Director Vice President Stidel. Thanks for making that observation. So we should just continue with the meeting. I mean, there's no problem there, right, Ms. Dodson?
No, there's no problem. If I remove her, she'll actually be removed from the meeting and not be able to log back in, and I don't want that to happen.
Well,
So I asked her to sign out and sign back in.
Okay. Well, we won't worry about that. So let's move on with the item 7C, which has become item 7A, and General Manager Weigold.
Vice President Farmer, agenda item 7C, now 7A, is discussion and consideration of adoption of resolution 22-20, improving water, sustainable water facility and sewer rates increases effective July 1st, 2020, as prescribed in resolution 27-2018 and 19-2019 in accordance with Proposition 218 actions. Staff is recommending that the Board of Directors adopt the resolution 22-2020, approving those rates effective July 1st. This action is the third and final of 3 annual rate increases as recommended in the Bartle Wells rate study. And I have an additional report to make, and that's in addition to the staff report on this item, with some additional information for the board's consideration. We as a staff are prepared to support whatever decision you feel is appropriate. We hope that you will stay the course, as we feel strongly that we have a solid plan to reverse the course of years of deferred maintenance to our infrastructure in both water and wastewater systems. That plan, designed by Bartle Wells Associates and the associated rate increases approved by the community, has set up the district to recover from years of neglect. Should the board decide to delay the rate increases by a billing cycle or two, the staff is prepared to adjust given the resources available to it. We have been examining various options and impacts to our operations and maintenance plan for both the water and wastewater systems, and Ray Dienzo will detail some of that in a few minutes. The Utilities Department has done a spectacular job within the resources we have had available to keep our systems operating. However, most of the staff's time has been focused on operating and repairing our current systems rather than proactive maintenance. We are not fully resourced for both. As an example, the water staff repairs a pipe leak every 1.8 days with no resources planned for future service line replacement. That's over 34 miles of pipe at $1 million a mile. And I've been told from experts assessing our wastewater plant that there is no component in our plant that has not exceeded its service life. So having the financial resources to address these risks yet to come are important to keep us in a financial condition to operate safely and efficiently in the future. Thank you very much for your consideration. And I don't know if Ray, if it's best for Ray to speak now, or President Farmer, or for his statement, or do you wish him to follow?
You know, I'll tell you what, Ray, why don't you go ahead and make a statement, and then we're going to open this item up to public comment. And, you know, we probably could have done that earlier, but it's probably important for you to, Mr. Weigel, make the comments that you just did, and then Ray, you can add on to that, and then we'll allow the public to speak. And I'm sure there's going to be a number of them. So Ray, why don't you go right ahead, please?
Okay, yeah, thanks. Thanks, Director Farmer. So the reason why I was asked to speak about this was I've been asked about what projects are going to be cut, quote unquote, if we were to delay the item for one billing cycle. And it's a difficult question to answer, because really the whole idea of this is that, you know, we want to be as fluid as possible with all the revenue that's available. I understand the situation as it is now. So like what Mr. Weigel said, you know, we will support whatever it is that we are given, because we've done it for the last several years, and we will continue to do so. We think, just in a nutshell, we think we can complete the project. When we can complete it is another issue. I personally hope to see all of this through, as I personally am in this for the long haul. So I'm not going to make excuses that way for not having projects done. The most reasonable scenario, because we all are familiar with infrastructure failure, you know, like a most obvious one right now is what's happening in Michigan, for example. And I'm sure someone there, you know, said that, oh, this dam is going to fail, whatever it is. But, you know, they probably didn't think it was going to fail now. And similar to that, you know, we acknowledge, I think everyone here acknowledges that there's infrastructure deficiencies. And when a failure happens, it happens. I'm not sure, I can't predict to you when that'll happen. The way I look at all the priorities in our CIP list, they're all essential, but there's a varying degree of essentialness, if you will. So, but I'm going to try to just summarize like a couple of things. So for example, in the water infrastructure, there's a couple of projects that we definitely would like to do, and we think we can do that this year. For example, the Santa Rosa Creek Pipe Bridge project. Right now, there's a pipe that's laying just exposed, like right there on the bridge. You know, we definitely want to get that complete this fiscal year. And we also definitely want to complete at least one of the phases of the meter replacement. I know that's been talked about long before I came on the scene, and I definitely think we should be able to do that. There's a danger of us not being able to do all of the phases of that, which I quite frankly wasn't expecting to, but was hopeful to do so. But that's another example of what might be delayed a little bit. And then the other thing too is, for example, there's other projects that don't seem to have a high priority, but you know, in the 4 months that I've been here, like for example, the Stewart Street tank, I think needs to be addressed sooner than later. We will definitely address what we can, the corrosion that the tank has. We will keep that running the best that we can, but from my point of view and from Jim's point of view, we definitely need to address that sooner other than later. You know, and that there was a possibility that, you know, debt service could have been applied to that. We would be able to finance that tank, but not having complete full revenue, there's a danger of us not having to do that this year and maybe defer it a little bit. So that's another example. And then, of course, in the wastewater side, there's in the wastewater side, I made mention that there's in previous committee meetings, the 3-wire to 4-wire upgrade is a very important thing for us to do. We definitely want to do that for sure. So that is gonna happen. We plan to upgrade get a new transformer and get a new switch gear for it. But the third leg, we might not be able to get the actual backup generator. So that might be delayed for a little bit. So that's an example of a project that might be pushed out a little bit. But hopefully with the 3-wire to 4-wire, we won't need the backup generator. So so those are acceptable risks that we could live with. And also the other thing too, I made mention about the repurposing of the existing tanks that we have here in our plant due to the investigation that I mentioned in my utilities report. And what's interesting about that is because we can repurpose those tanks, if you look in the spreadsheet that's attached to 7C under wastewater, there's a really good potential we could work on project number 4, number 6, number 7, and number 12 because of those tanks being able to be repurposed. And that's definitely something we can address right away and, you know, possibly get financing for if we had like full revenue. Okay, there's a danger that we might not even get all of that. But that's an example of there's these projects that in our point of view, we were hoping that, you know, we'll get the 3-wire to 4-wire done and maybe, you know, we can get some of these projects done, but it might be too expensive. But because we can repurpose those tanks, those projects now are within reach. And again, though, but at the same time, we might have to delay it because of the revenue not being available for us all at the same time. But again, I think I'm not an alarmist. I'm not going to say everything's going to break, you know, if you don't do anything. I'm very optimistic. I think the group here has done a great job in making everything operational, even though everyone here understands that the infrastructure is lacking, and it's right around that time too that a lot of these infrastructure projects are at the tail end of their useful life, and maintenance is no longer the solution for it, but upgrades. So those are my thoughts. I don't want to. I totally understand that this is a pandemic and we've never been here before, and you know there's a lot of people that are experiencing pain. So we are definitely going to roll with whatever it is that the board decides, and we're going to make it work. So anyway, hopefully that answers some of the questions that people have asked about the projects and what exactly do we mean by things delaying. Oh, and the other thing too, I want to add too, when you have projects on hand too, that also makes us available for grants too, because one of the things that we have whenever, from my experience, is when you have, you know, shovel-ready projects, you're able to get grants, you know, to apply for them right away, as opposed to like, oh well, it's just in design and we're not going to pursue it any longer. But if we have projects on hand that are ready to go, that always puts us in better position to get grants. But so those are some opportunities that might be missed. But I'm not gonna. We will definitely try our best to still pursue those grants, even though they might be delayed a little bit. So that's it. I hope that clarifies some things.
All right, thank you, Ray. Well, thank you, Mr. D'Enzo, and also General Manager Weigel for your comments prior to public comment. I see we still have 32 participants, so that probably means about 21 members of the public out there observing. And so, Ms. Dodson, First, let me ask you, how many requests do we have for public comment on this item? And give us the first two folks, please.
I currently have 3 comments to read, and I have 1 member of the public wishing to dial in to speak.
All right, thank you. So go right ahead and reading those emails.
Okay. Well, Christine Heinrichs is raising her hand to speak, and so I was going to read her comment, so I will let her actually speak on her item and move on to the other 2.
All right, thank you.
The first comment is from Scott Anderson, and it says, here are my 3 questions. I find it easier to support projects when I can understand how the money will be spent. Please specify the top 3 infrastructure improvements and their estimated cost plan for the sewer infrastructure. Please also specify the estimated annual income derived from the rate increase. 2, it is my understanding that the EWS has never produced water for distribution to ratepayers. Is this true or false? If true, why is a rate increase needed and how will it be used? If false, please quantify the amount of water produced in the past 3 months. Number 3, what is the monthly debt service of the EWS, monthly interest payment, and has anyone checked to see if it's possible to refinance at today's low interest rates? Thank you, Scott Anderson. And the second comment is from Joe and Julie Barnett. CCSD must find a way to cover their expenses in a better way than to continually charging citizens. Cambria is mostly made up of older folks on a fixed income. We cannot continue to use our meager earnings to pay such exorbitant rates for basic essentials like water. Thank you, Joe and Julie Barnett. And so now I will bring in Ted Key to speak.
Good afternoon, directors. Ted Key, Cambria. Today, you are yet again contemplating another rate increase. Like death and taxes over time, we can be sure the rates are going to go up. For quite some time now, I've been most disappointed by the expenditures in some of the areas, particularly the never-ending financial drain presented by the AWTP. This project is slated to receive yet another 12% of the proposed increase. My question to each of you, is there any amount of money that would be too much to spend on a device that is hundreds of % over estimates and that you're currently suing the manufacturer for non-performance? How many hours of staff time and now another 100K of consulting, which is really still all about the AWTP CDP, not the water plan? During the last 6 years, as these CDP machinations have gone on, technology has moved forward in leaps and bounds. You'd be concerned about never-ending spending on a machine quickly becoming obsolete. I urge you to please carefully note what I just said. On the other hand, I've been urging the district to get our house in order with leak detection and control. I'm very pleased to see that process moving well forward. I am all for that and fully accept those additional costs. Available water from a reduction in leak losses of 4 to 5% off our average 13% represent a huge change for us. Over the past 5 years, my bill with the same usage has increased almost $50 a month, $600 a year. While I might be able to observe that figure, my wife and others delivered food yesterday to many in this town who are struggling to pay their rent and feed their kids, much less their utilities. Many local districts are controlling their costs with reduction measures. Adding 100K of yet more consulting is the antithesis of that. Directors, it is cruel and unusual punishment for those who are struggling financially to implement a rate increase right now. I urge either a no vote or a tabling of this issue until some semblance of stability returns. And I also would like to take a moment to thank Ray. I think Ray and his group are doing the very best they can with limited resources. I get it. We're having to deal with the sins for many years. And Ray, I feel your pain. I do. And I know you're doing a great job because I see your guys out there slogging in the dirt and so on and so forth. So I want to thank you for the work that you're doing. And I wish I could give you a gazillion dollars to do more, but we have what we have. And right now it's just not the right time. So that's all I have to say on the matter today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Key. So I assume, Haley, we have no further requests for public comment on this item?
We actually had 3 additional requests come in to speak.
Okay.
The next individual is Elizabeth Benthausen.
All right, thank you. Yes, Ms. Bettenhausen.
Thank you, President Farmer. I have sent to Ms. Dodson a copy of my remarks, and I would like them in the public record of this meeting, please. And I need to bring them up on my screen so I can read them. These are my comments. Well, pardon me, I have to get used to this. May 21st, to the Board of Directors regarding 7C, which is now 7A, on the water rate increase. I have 4 quick requests. 1, I request that you table until July 16th this item, the resolution to increase the rates. You have insufficient information about the economic effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on Cambria to make a reasonable, informed decision today about the rate increases. You might have better information in July. 2, I request that you instruct the general manager and finance officer to reduce by $115,000 the expenditures projected for the fiscal year 2021 budget being prepared. On page 229 of your agenda today, this amount is what is posited for delaying the increase for 1 billing cycle. That's $115,000. That's delayed then, but not eliminated. The budget can be, what you adopt in June can be changed as soon as the second quarter of fiscal year 2021 or later. 3, I request that you consider on your agenda revisiting your action of May 14th, 2020, hiring a consultant to work on the urban water management plan. Reverse your action, but then table the hiring. I do not ask you to reverse it permanently, but this would free up $99,000 immediately. The minutes of that meeting are no longer available, so I am assuming that you adopted this hiring of that consultant. You could again address hiring the consultant when you have more information about the CDP and the UWMP guidebook and changes for the urban water management plan later in the summer of 2020. I have contacted the water resources people in Sacramento, and they have been somewhat delayed by the COVID situation as well. So it's affecting many dimensions of our lives. And finally, number 4, I request that you table item 7B on today's agenda. This would also free up $4,800 to $5,500. That's not much, but it's not in this fiscal year's budget for fiscal year 1920. In the fiscal impact discussion of this item today on page 64, it is important to note this statement, quote, "If a budget adjustment is needed, there is a surplus projected for personnel services, of which a portion can be transferred to services and supplies during the 4th quarter budget report," end of quotation. If such a surplus carries over from one fiscal year to the next, this could also offset some of the reduction or postponement of the $115,000 in rate revenue that would be delayed by virtue of your decision board. I cannot emphasize too much the situation in this country, including Cambria, of the economic devastation that's happening to people. And on NPR today, they talked about the projected 1.5 million more children who could die, not because of the virus, but because of the economic consequences of the situation of employment, etc. So I urge you, board, do not be a board which takes action today to increase the rates. It would be way too embarrassing, and I could elaborate, as you well know, but I end my comments with that passionate request that you table this until a July meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bettenhausen. Yes, Ms. Tydell, were you going to comment on Ms. Bettenhausen's comments? I think we have other public comment.
Oh, I agree. I was just curious as whether we're using the 3-minute time limit.
I've been watching the clock. Thank you.
Okay, the next member of the public that wishes to speak is Christine Heinrichs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Raising the rates at this time, with many people struggling financially, ignores the very real problems the COVID-19 pandemic caused. However, the district is in such deep debt, even this rate increase isn't going to bring in enough money to cover the costs. The emergency water supply project has beggared the district. It starts with the annual payments of over $650,000. That takes a big bite out of district finances right there. But that's never enough. Costs have been running at around $1 million a year. Currently, the district is also pursuing a $3.5 million lawsuit against a contractor, which adds to legal expenses. At the last meeting, the board approved another $100,000 contract related to the plant. Although only about $25,000 of that is designated for work related to the EWS, the board approved the additional $75,000 for work on the urban water management plan, even after the utilities manager told you that he and the district staff could do that work in-house. That's another $25,000 in the EWS column. The application is not yet complete, 6 years after the plant was constructed. So that's the reason the district needs a rate increase. As you have pursued the EWS, you've ignored normal maintenance on water and sewer infrastructure. To address that, you entered into an agreement with PG&E for a Sustainable Solutions Turnkey program for an initial payment of about $500,000 and looking forward to $10 million or more in repairs and upgrades. It's hard to argue against this either. After years of deferred maintenance, the district's pipes are rusty, its electrical and electronic systems are outdated. Where's that money going to come from? So that's why the board is under pressure to raise rates. You need to pay the bills. Cambrians want reliable water and sewer service. They aren't able to stop making those EWS payments, and you're apparently unwilling to stop hiring contractors to reach for that elusive permit to operate the EWS, despite your own advisor telling you in November to scale back. And that's where the money's going. Instead of replacing those 34 miles of rusted pipe in the wastewater treatment plant, in which every item is beyond its useful life, the district has continued to spend millions of dollars on the EWS, ignored water and sewer maintenance, and now is in a bind. Now or later, the money can only come from ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Heinrichs. Ms. Dodson, we have one more request to speak, yes?
Yes, the next member of the public that wishes to speak is Tina Dickinson.
All right. Ms. Dickinson, go right ahead.
I'm trying to bring her in.
Okay.
It's not allowing me to let her to talk. There it goes.
Here it goes.
Are you asking for me, Haley? Tina?
Yes,
Hello?
Tina, go ahead.
Okay, I'm having terrible problems today with this, the reception, it's terrible. I wrote to you this morning and General Manager Weigold with my thoughts and with several links to applications. I mean, the state is furloughing state agents. I talked with, are you hearing me?
Yeah, you know, Tina.
Can you hear me?
Well, we can and we can't. You know, you're kind of breaking up.
All right. Are you hearing me now?
No, actually, it's.
Are you hearing me now?
It's becoming more problematic. I'll tell you, I feel a little reluctant to do this. Why don't you go ahead and send the email that you sent us this morning? Go ahead and send it to Haley, and we'll have her read it with a 3-minute time limit imposed upon it. Are you comfortable?
Well, you have it. You all send it to her.
Well, yeah,
you
yes.
all have it. Why don't you just send it to Haley? You have it, President Farmer. You could read it.
Well, I was considering doing that, Ms. Dickinson. So thank you for not following my suggestion of you emailing it to Haley and having her read it.
You have it. All 5 of you have it.
Tina, I appreciate you calling in. Well, you know what? Now we can hear you better, but there's a time situation here. I'll tell you what. Tina, I will just go ahead and kind of rehash and quickly in my head as I possibly can what it is that you emailed us this morning, okay? So Tina was talking about the fact that there are members, I think, of the Regional Water Quality Control Board who have furloughed some of their employees. Morro Bay, some employees there have voluntarily taken a admin staff have voluntarily taken a 5 to 8% pay cut. Their city council, all of whom are retired, have decided not to take a salary for the remainder of the year and perhaps into 2021. Tina was just essentially pointing out that other agencies are making every effort to downsize the amount of money that they're spending, especially with regard to staff and staff salaries. So she's encouraging us to somehow take this into consideration as well. I hope that's sufficient, Ms. Dickinson. All right, getting back to a board discussion on this item, and I open this up to comment by the board and anybody wish to speak. Director Rice.
Thank you, President Farmer. And I hope Vice President Stidel doesn't mind me usurping, since she was the finance committee chair.
No, of course not.
Okay. First, let me thank Vice President Stidel and the finance committee for taking a look at this closely. Second, I'd like to say that the questions that Scott Anderson asked in his email are all appropriate questions and are questions that the Finance Committee has probably looked at. I can't say for sure since I'm not on the Finance Committee, but they are questions that this board has consistently asked and were asked as part of this original rate study. Former Director Jim Beringer and I were on the rates committee that looked at this rate study. And one of the things we insisted on in 2018 was that we needed better oversight of the board, because there were just increases over increases over increases, and nothing on that CIP list seemed to be going away. We seemed to just continue to get a longer list. It took, I don't know how many years to get the influence screen finally installed, and it was in the budget a number of years before it got installed. So what I'm seeing now and what I'm hearing from Mr. D'Enzo makes me very comfortable about the fact that we can go forward with this additional increase. Now, I want to be clear, the community approved. Not everybody. We did get some protest votes, but the community did approve the 3 years of incremental increases to the rates. That, yes, Mr. Key is correct, does increase your bill over the last 3 years by not an insignificant amount. But we have the board approving this because the prior rate increase, we didn't have board approval and the money wasn't being appropriately overseen, I don't think, by the board. I'm very comfortable with the fact that we've got an additional increase and we need it. One of the things that I wanted to mention is that in this report, which I think is appropriate, it speaks about the overall, what the impact is to the district, but it doesn't really say what the impact is for an individual customer of the district. So the amount of increase, people who are already struggling to pay their bill, the amount that it's going to increase, it is almost a negligible amount considering the amount that they're currently paying. So the increased amount, to me, it will have an impact on people, but I do not think it's going to increase the number of people who cannot pay, because it's not going up that a significant amount. In fact, it's one of the smaller increases among the three. I also want to address one of the things brought up in Ms. Dickinson's email relating to Morro Bay and other agencies that are cutting back on their staffing. Places that are cities, the state agencies, all rely on property taxes and sales tax and income tax. We are not going to see the kind of impact that cities will see on the decrease in income tax and on sales tax income. A lot of cities are really going to hurt, and they have to cut back because they fund a lot of their positions with sales tax, which we do not have that as an income source. So I just want to be clear that we will be hurting. We do not know the final outcome and how much this is going to cost our district, both in income and other potential losses. But I'd also like to say, I'm really glad we're not an incorporated city right now, because we'd be in much, much worse shape, because we would be relying more on our, for our budget on sales and income tax, depending on, you know, what level you're talking about. So I just wanted to make that part clear. The amount of one billing cycle that it's going to save an individual customer, I don't think justifies delaying it one billing cycle for the hassles that are involved in the delay. I think it could cost us more to delay one billing cycle than just the amount of revenue. I personally, well, I think that our water rates are high. I also want to remind people that if you look across the entire county, ours are not even close to the highest. And we are finally on the road to using this money appropriately. We don't use wastewater money that comes in for wastewater. When you pay your water and sewer bill, those amounts get separated. Wastewater money goes to wastewater, water goes to water. So I understand the concerns about the advanced water treatment plant and the permitting costing a lot of money, but that is unfortunately the situation we're in. And in order to get out of it, we have to continue. We're way past a point of pulling back to save money on it. Unfortunately, in some situations that might have been the situation, you know, 5 years ago, but not now. Now we have to get out of it, and we're not just throwing money at it. We are actually strategically focused on how do we get the most value for the money that we're going to be spending from our ratepayers, which are our friends and neighbors and ourselves.
All right, thank you, Director Rice. Director Pearson, do you remember what it is that you wish to say?
Yes.
And by the way, I didn't mean to undersell what it is that Director Rice just said. Thank you for all those clarifications with regard to the impact what is happening now will have on our community versus other cities and agencies. So thank you, Director Rice. Yes, Director Pearson.
Thank you, President Farmer. I think we need to move ahead with the rate increase as it was done. And the reason I say that is because we are making progress. The CIP that was attached to this meeting packet indicates that we've gotten some things completed. We've got a lot of things in progress, and we've got a lot more left to do, unfortunately. So we're going to need every bit of this money to get through all that. I really appreciate the fact that General Manager Weigold and Mr. Dienzo and Ms. Duffield in particular have been very good about keeping an eye on the money that we're bringing in and making sure that it is well spent. An example of that came up today when Mr. Dienzo gave us his report on finding water leaks. I think that's taking an appropriate amount of money. Even Ms. Bettenhausen agrees that that was an appropriate amount of money to be spent to look for leaks and to get that production figure much closer to the actual usage figure. So we're making great progress. I really think we are. Now, I for one think that a significant symbolic, let's say, motion here to delay it for one billing period is appropriate. I think that that tells the community that we understand that we are in different times, that we have compassion for the fact that some of these people are hurting and can't make their payments now. So I think that the Finance Committee did a fine job in recommending that we pass the rates, but delay their implementation for one billing period. We can then revisit this again in July, as Ms. Bettenhausen recommended, and see if things have changed enough or if we need to delay it for another billing period at that point. But I think the way the economy is starting to open up and that we're starting to get back a little bit towards normal life, that by July we'll recognize that, okay, we're gonna be okay, and we continue to help those who are having difficulty with their rates, and we continue to help them out and give them payment programs or whatever we can do. And I know Ms. Duffield has been doing that on a regular basis now. And I think we continue to do that and help those people get through this tough time for them. So I would like to move approving the water and sustainable water facility and sewer rate increases effective July 1st, 2020 as prescribed in Resolution 27, 2018 and 19, 2019 in accordance with Proposition 218 actions, with the caveat that we suspend the rate increase for one billing period until they would go into effect on September 1st, 2020 instead of July 1st, 2020. Thank you.
Second.
Well, I believe you've just made a motion. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Pearson? So
Yes.
do we, I see that Director Howell has his hand up. Yes, Don, go right ahead.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. So would we like to have a little bit further discussion on this particular item? Yes.
Mr. Carmel has a question.
I see that. Thank you. Yeah, yes, Mr. Carmel.
I just wanted to clarify the motion. So that would have been a motion to approve resolution number 22-2020 with the caveat that at the end of that, the enacting paragraph, it would read, are hereby approved and shall be implemented, beginning September 1st, 2020.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you, Mr. Carmel. So we have a motion and we have a second. So Vice President Steidel, as member of the Finance Committee, did you want to make any further comment?
I not so much further comment. I do feel that Directors Rice and Pearson both covered many of the important specific things about the rate increase itself. I will also add to that, just in terms of you know, to reiterate information to the community, you know, we all feel the, I'll use the term angst of what's going on with COVID and the impacts that it has for any number of people in our community. I just want people to be assured that the district is very aware of it, and that Ms. Duffield has gone out of her way to look and recommend actions that the district can offer people who are having difficulty. And that has included the recommendation and approval of the board for the suspension of late payments, the suspension of any kind of cutoff. In addition to that, being proactive and interacting with individuals in the community for payment plans. That I haven't been speaking much, so my throat's dry. Excuse me, for payment plans, which she has actively been working with folks. So I will mention, please, if anyone is having difficulty with the payment of their utilities, to please contact the district, speak to Ms. Duffield or to whomever she may direct you regarding what kind of actions we can take to support any particular difficulty related to utility, and potentially even for recommendations that they may have for organizations outside the district that could be a support function for those folks. But with that being said, I would say also that I would support the action and recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Director Howell, you wish to make a comment?
Yeah, just a brief comment. I just wanted to note for you guys and also for the folks listening, I've received more than 20 letters regarding this issue, and they really fall about half-half when I counted them up. So I think there are people on both sides of this. I just wanted to comment very briefly, Director Rice's statement that we don't have taxing authority. This is the first time I've ever actually been happy that we don't have taxing. So there's a lesson there. It kind of depends on the context. So I just wanted to bring that up because we're always hearing, oh, we don't. The other thing, I wonder if we could have a writer to this motion or this is more to transmit a message to the public. I think Director Farmer and I might be well advised to resume work on the ad hoc committee for water rate assistance if Ms. Duffield has the time. I think it's time to bring this forward. And so I just wanted to bring that out, and we don't need a motion, but I just wanted to let that know. And so I'd like some consensus from the board that Mr. Farmer and I should go forward with that or not.
Yeah, I think you should, but I think that's a future agenda item, Don, instead of tacking it onto this one.
Yeah, just wanted to get it out there. Yeah.
Bring it back up though, then please.
Yeah, if you would do that, Don. I see that we have 11 minutes to go until the 5 o'clock hour. So we're very shortly going to have to make a motion to extend this meeting. And I appreciate everything that both Director Rice and Director Pearson have said. It's really heartwarming, isn't quite the word, but it's greatly appreciated that after, and I believe this was pointed out by General Manager Weigold, with regard to the deferred maintenance and the years of neglect with regard to both water and wastewater by previous boards while they were tending to approving the emergency water supply plant that has seriously harmed the financial well-being of this district and therefore the ratepayers of this community. I know we can't look backward 6 years ago, but it's still quite frustrating. I just want to say that since I've been on the board, the thing that I've been most passionate about is upgrading and improving infrastructure at the wastewater plant, as well as with regard to the needs of the water department. And it just breaks my heart that this particular item includes, and I know not everybody on this board agrees with me or out in the community, but the fact that included are monies to go to the emergency water supply facility, which, like I said, just really makes me feel really uncomfortable. You know, I voted against the rate increase last year because part of the increase goes to the what is usually termed as the SWF or the AWTP, as Mr. Key said, but it's the emergency water supply plant. And so I just wanted to voice my concern there with regard to my frustration. We certainly do need the money to improve infrastructure. There's no doubt about that. Anyway, Ms. Dodson, if you would just go ahead and yes, Director.
President Farmer, I know we've taken a lot of time on this, but I don't see anywhere in this report, it gives the impact, but I don't see the Finance Committee's recommendation that we wait one billing cycle. Maybe I missed it somewhere. And I also wanted to ensure that that our resolution is corrected in all the places where it says July 1, 2020, where it's appropriate, like in the last, therefore be it resolved, and in the title. I just want to be sure if we're changing it to September, we're actually changing it to September.
Good point.
And I'd also like to point out to the community, additional increases cannot happen until there is another rate study commissioned and approved by the board, which will take a minimum of 2 years. This is the last increase you're going to see until you have another chance as the public to protest an increase. So I just want to put that out there.
Good point. Good point.
Finance Officer Duffield would like to make a comment.
So the information is on the staff report as far as the results and the findings of the Finance Committee. It is on page 229, and it's the next to last paragraph at the bottom. It starts out saying on April 28th, 2020.
I see.
And I highlighted that paragraph specific to our last board meeting when you said you really wanted to see you know, the findings of the finance and how they voted in future staff reports. So I did include that for your information.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the position of everybody in town having trouble paying their bill, but I don't think this increase is a big enough impact. This specific one, not the overall that was approved by the community in 2018, but this specific one. I don't see the need for delay, so I'm going to be voting no on it.
Mr. Carmel.
President Farmer, in response to Director Rice's comments, I think the only change that's necessary is to strike effective July 1, 2020 from the title of the resolution. Everything else is just a factual recitation of what the prior resolutions said.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
That therefore be it resolved paragraph is okay the way it is.
Oh.
Yeah, those are. Well, read it. Those are factual statements, and the operative statement is are hereby approved and shall be implemented beginning September 1st, 2020.
Wait.
We're waiting. Mr. Howell is taking a look at this item.
Got it.
You okay?
Just adding those words, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just want to be sure.
So Ms. Dodson, I know you've had a lot of adjusting there to do. So if you would go ahead and read this resolution before it's voted upon, please.
I don't have the actual resolution revised yet, but I do have the motion.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
So the motion is to adopt resolution 2020 or 22-2020, approving water, SWF, and sewer rate increases and implement them on September 1st, 2020.
All right, can we take I think that we've had that motion and a second, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
So go ahead and do a roll call vote, please.
Director Pearson,
Aye.
Director Howell,
Aye.
Director Rice,
No.
Vice President Steidel,
Aye.
President Farmer.
No. Okay, moving on to,
President Farmer?
yes, Director Steidel, Vice President Steidel.
Director Rice, can I ask,
Yes.
I don't know if that's appropriate for me to ask the question. Originally, you had indicated that you would vote for full application of the rate.
Yes.
As this was not full application of the rate, was that?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so.
It's not that, yes, correct.
All right, it isn't.
And I'm not running in November, so I don't have that, you know, I really genuinely think this increase is needed. I believe that the additional oversight we added in when we put these rates into place is less required than it was when we put them into place. They would have just automatically gone otherwise.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing that we're arriving at the 5 o'clock hour, do I hear a motion to continue this meeting until 6 o'clock?
I have
Hopefully it won't take that long.
Before we vote, I have a question. Go ahead with the motion, though.
So I'll move that we extend the meeting till 6 o'clock.
Thank you, Director Pearson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Vice President Steidel. Can we have a roll call vote on, oh yes, Director Howell.
Question. I need this so I know how to vote. Mr. Carmel, what happens if we do not vote to extend the meeting?
We end right here, and the items that are on the agenda that are left will be carried over to next Thursday's meeting.
I see. And there would be no option of having a special meeting to take care of those items?
There is
you
no.
always have.
In other words, could we turn to a time certain?
Yes, you would be able to do that.
Okay. So that is an alternative to extending the meeting.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so let's just, since we have to vote on extending it because we're like 2 minutes away, can we just have a vote on extending the meeting, and then we can discuss if we want to continue to pursue these two items or move them to a meeting further down the road, like next Thursday, because we already had a special meeting and we canceled that. So,
I didn't mean, Mr. President, I didn't mean that we should do it. I just need to know, I didn't want to feel like I'm being backed into a corner is all. I'm actually in favor of extending the meeting, but I want to know what would happen if we didn't.
Okay.
That's all.
All right, thank you.
Not an issue at this time. Maybe at the next meeting it will be.
So let's take a vote on the motion at hand, and Ms. Dodson.
Director Pearson,
Aye.
Vice President Steidel,
Aye.
Director Howell,
Aye.
Director Rice,
No.
President Farmer.
Aye. So let's just go ahead and quickly discuss, do we want to continue with these two items that are left on the agenda, which are items 7B and 7A? Do we wish to continue this meeting and address these items, or should we put this forward to another meeting, perhaps a special meeting next Thursday? Do we wish to have a discussion on this, just very briefly?
No.
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 No. So we're just going to move on right now. Thank you. All right. So then let's go ahead and address item 7B. And would you introduce this item, General Manager Weigel?
Yes, President Farmer. Agenda item 7B is discussion and consideration to approve an agreement for strategic planning consulting services with Snyder and Associates. Staff is recommending that the board approve an agreement for consulting services with Snyder and Associates for strategic planning consulting services and authorize the general manager to execute the agreement. The CCSD received 9 responses to our request for proposal, which were reviewed first by staff and then recommended by the board's strategic consulting ad hoc committee and are attached for your information. I would want to make one note as to the fiscal impact. Because of our current shelter at home policies, this would not impact this year's budget. This would be budgeted for the fiscal year 20-21, not this current year, because we're not going to be able to meet and set up this meeting until after we're able to do so physically. But I'll refer further presentation discussing to the ad hoc.
All right, so Director Pearson and Director Steidel, I believe the two, and Vice President Steidel, you were the 2 members of the ad hoc committee. So either one of you wish to move forward, please?
Yeah, I can start, and Director Steidel or Vice President Steidel can finish off. But we looked at this. Well, first of all, let me start with, I think the strategic planning thing is an absolute necessity. And the reason I think it's a necessity is because this board is a reactive board. We deal with things on a reactive basis. When things are thrown in our face, we do something about them. And without a strategic plan, that's how we'll continue. So we never get to those things that are quote unquote really important. And a lot of those things are things that are brought up by the community at our meetings on public comment, because we never seem to talk about them. And I'm going to give you an example of a couple of them. There's several people who have brought up the fact that we should be heading towards a goal of net zero in our district. Absolutely, I agree with that. We should be figuring that out. We'll never get to that unless we get it in a strategic plan, and then we have goals that we should head for and meet that. Same thing with a forest manager. I would love to have a forest manager. I think it's very important that we have a forest manager because we live in a forest. And we'll never get to that either because we react to things and we don't. Oh, well, no, I take that back. We may get a forest manager if the town burns down. That's when we'll get a forest manager right after that. In any case, the reason that we need the strategic plan is to stop being a reactive board and to have some strategy is where we're going to go, where we want to be in 5 years from now or whatever. The ad hoc committee looked at all of those proposals, and we were astonished that this lady, Ms. Snyder, had a very compact, very addressable proposal that looked great, and she was going to do it for a fraction of what everybody else was going to do. So we had a phone call with her, with General Manager Weigold, and the lady is amazing. She's spot on. She's very good. She knows her business. She's done this for many other people. She has done it in one day for many other people. In fact, much larger groups and much smaller groups. And we as an ad hoc committee said, this is our lady. She can do it for us. We're a small group. We don't want to spend a lot of money, but we want to get this thing done. And this is a great way to get that to happen. So the ad hoc committee recommends that we go ahead and hire this lady and approve this resolution to execute that contract. Vice President Steidel.
Thank you, Director Pearson. I guess I agree with all of that information. I guess what I'll add to it, just as a frame of reference for the community, I think when they hear the term consultant, they generally think of someone who's coming in to basically give us an idea of, somehow either technically or through some other mechanism is giving us the information to do something. And we're not really looking for a consultant in the traditional sense. It isn't someone who's going to come in and tell us what our strategic plan should be. What we're actually trying to get is someone to facilitate us that will allow us to develop what we need to do. And the reality is that as a group, both as a board and with the staff, with the management staff, you can't have a dialogue and an exchange and brainstorming and put things out on a table and be forthright with each other if one of you has to facilitate it and remove themselves from participating in the process. By the same token, you can't have someone act as a recorder of the information so that you have a record and a path of how things took its course or the recommendations that were put forward if you're having to participate in that. It needs someone to facilitate it, and it needs someone to act as a recorder so that the people who are going to be responsible for formulating it are actually the people who are formulating it. So in going out and looking to bring someone in to assist us as a facilitator and use a consulting company that provides that kind of service was what we were looking at in the information that were brought forward to us. I agree. It's interesting because Director Pearson and I didn't get together and review all of the proposals that were brought in to us. We each obtained from the GM what those proposals were, and independently, without talking to each other, immediately came to the same conclusion about Ms. Snyder, and communicated that back to the general manager immediately. Now, Mr. Pierce, or Director Pearson and I both had the opportunity to participate in a Zoom meeting with her to ask questions, to get feedback from her, to get a good idea of what her approach is in a process like this. She's very direct, she's very open. Later, had the opportunity to have those perceptions reinforced when President Farmer and I also had a Zoom meeting with her. And I would offer also that that was a very satisfactory process in itself. So that's my feedback in terms of the ad hoc and the process that we went through, and the reason that I feel that the ad hoc committee has such a positive perception of this in its recommendation.
Thank you, Vice President Stidel. Director Rice, you wish to comment? For some reason, we can't hear you. I'm sorry, we still can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
This is why I wanted to stop the meeting at 5. I don't know how to behave after 5 p.m. apparently. Was there any public comment? Because I wanted to allow for public comment before.
Thank you for that reminder. Ms. Dotson, do we have any public comment on this item?
Yes.
I do have one member of the public that wishes to speak, Christine Heinrichs.
Okay. Go right ahead, Ms. Heinrich.
Thank you. It's very nice that this person is so competent and that she's just so won the board over with her charm and expertise. But this is, to say the best, this is tone deaf at this time to commit to yet another $5,000 or $10,000 while the community is struggling and while the board, you've just heard about how you have 34 miles of rusted pipes that you can't pay to replace. I mean, I'm kind of stunned at the idea that you think you can't talk to each other, that you couldn't be candid with each other, that you couldn't take notes on what you were saying, that you couldn't figure out what you had said after you said it. I mean, I'm sorry, this to me is, I recommend that you not do this. It is not a good optics, and I believe it is quite unnecessary. I have much more confidence in you than you have in yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Heinrich. So any further comments from board members? Director
Yes.
Wright.
So I appreciate the ad hoc committee and where have you been all my elected life? Because this is something that has needed doing for longer than I've been on the board. Therefore, I am reluctant to say that there's a couple of things that there's one thing that would help me feel more confident in your selection, which would be, did you speak to any of the other agencies where she has performed her services? Because some people can come off really great in an interview, but if you actually talk to the people who they prior had worked with, you don't know. I'd also like to point out, because she's the least expensive, she provides a smaller service than a lot of the other proposals allow for. I'd like to remind us, we chose the least expensive auditor also. So I prefer to not end up in that situation where we don't want to end up in a situation, because, and I understand your discussion helped clarify for me that that's less of an issue, it sounds like, but not having spoken to any other agencies who've worked with her, it's a little, the other thing is timing. So we're about 5 months away from 3 board members being up for election. We may have 2 or 3 brand new board members. So if we do this in the next couple of months, even if we do it in August, what I was hearing was that she comes back after 6 months or whatever, there's going to be a whole new board. So I question the timing. I am 100% behind doing this. I am loath to delay it any further. However, out of respect for people who might be sitting in our seats a year from now, Dawn and Cindy will still be here, but a majority of the board theoretically could turn over, and they'll be stuck in the middle of a strategic planning process. And maybe that's not something people are worried about, but I think the timing this close to an election with a possible turnover, hopefully it will be not a turnover of 3, but those are my concerns.
Thank you, Director Rice. Vice President Stidel.
And I acknowledge those, Director Rice. I understand what you're saying, and I had thought through that, and there was some discussion about that. The one thing I guess in my mind is there's also an awareness or a knowledge base that exists with this board that has formed as it exists right now. And frankly, I think that if we were to have, at the largest condition, the fact that there would be 3 positions on the board replaced, I think being able to have a game plan in front of you that was actually reviewed and formulated by people who had experience and background and understood some of the particulars would be an extraordinary benefit for people coming into the process that hadn't had the opportunity to build that knowledge base yet. I mean, it's something that could easily carry them forward through the first year of whatever the process, whatever the board composition might represent, because the strategic planning itself could, had been suggested as a consideration for 3 years, and you go in and adjust goals as necessary and adjust your short-term objectives to be able to complete the goals. But I don't see that as a limitation or a risk. I see it as actually a handoff to help strengthen the people that would be coming to the experience.
General Manager Weigold.
I was going to address the reference checking. One of the references is Pam Duffield, who worked with this consultant in Riverside County when the consultant worked with 10,000 people in a day. And I also referenced with Bradley Hagman, the Avila Beach General Manager, CSD General Manager, and he worked with this consultant when he was at the Monterey Regional Pollution Control Agency, which is a 20 million gallon a day wastewater plant with 11 board members. It was a joint powers agency, and they had her there 6 years in a row, and highly recommended her.
Thank you, General Manager Weigold. Well, as Vice President Steidel mentioned, her and I and Mr. Weigold had the opportunity to meet with her this past Monday on a Zoom call. Took about 45 minutes. And, I was initially really against another expense to our very stretched, and limited budget, and felt like we could do this on our own. I think what Director Pearson pointed out about us for who knows how long now being a reactive board, because we've had so many difficulties to deal with, especially difficulties that we've inherited from previous boards, which makes it feel like really difficult to get out from under, so to speak. And in talking with her, I hesitate to say this, she's like kind of a motivational facilitator and getting us to address what it is that we need to, what we need to discuss and come to some conclusion on as to how to move forward. She's kind of direct us in our own decision making. One of the things that she pointed out, and she basically says we should have a 3-year plan. She also advised us that roughly a week or so before we have our motivational meeting is that we meet with the public and have them give us their feedback. And she recommended that that be a fairly lengthy discussion. And obviously we have a lot of people in this community with a variety of opinions with regard to this district, with regard to this board. And I think having that meeting a week before, hopefully with some physical distance, if that is still necessary, and it probably will be, following up with a meeting of our board and our staff, which is probably going to be what, 12, 15 people? I think that it would be really invaluable at this point in time to do this moving forward. And the fact that it's going to be roughly with salary and with expenses, probably around $6,000, give or take, considering all the other expenses, monies that we spend, I think this would be really money well spent. And that's how I feel about it. So, Haley, do we have a motion?
Don has his hand up.
Director Howell has a...
Don, go right ahead.
Sorry. Thank you. I just was waiting to hear what others had to say. I am, first of all, entirely in favor of this conceptually, the necessity for an outside facilitator, as Director Steidel laid out. I've encountered situations, you cannot have a really good meeting of that kind without someone who is highly skilled at that and who is not involved, doesn't know the community, has no skin in any game. So you have a very impartial person who has the important skills. I did review all of the responses. It was very impressive. And it is true that Ms. Snyder's, the advantage that she had is that she's really only charging us for one meeting. However, I want to remind you, and I'm not against her actually, but I want to, because Director Rice brought this up, price-wise, she doesn't come out that well when you compare the number of meetings that some of the other proposals were proposing. And recall that Ms. Snyder herself is actually proposing 2 meetings, each of which would cost $4,800 plus expenses. So we're paying approximately $6,000 per meeting. I happen to like that cafeteria approach rather than hiring the whole thing with all the bells and whistles, because I think for our needs, it suits us very well. And if we only have 1 meeting and that's sufficient, that would be fine. And then if we find that we need to have revisit it, we call her again and have her come back. So I am definitely, thank you for the ad hoc. Thank you for what you did. Thank you for General Manager Weigold for your work in this. I do think it's something that the district needs. Now I come to the other part though. I am having a problem with the timing for 2 reasons. One, I don't think it, even though it is a very small amount of money at this point in time, when we're talking about how little the money the district has and how we still have to go forward with the rate increase, I don't think that's the time to, even though it's only $48,000 plus expenses, I don't think this is the time to do it. I think it can be done later. That gets me to my next point. Actually, I have 2 points. The next point is I agree I really do think that doing it before an election, while it might be of some use, because after all, this board gets along relatively well, and so we're kind of moving in the same direction. But there's no assurance that the next board is going to be like that. And it could well be that we simply waste $6,000. So it makes total sense to me to wait until after the new board takes office. My recommendation would be to contact Ms. Snyder and say that, yes, we do want to use her, and would she reserve some space in her schedule for something in December or January. Now, my third point, and then I'm done. The third point is that the one thing that caused me to kind of, before I had heard all the positive things about her, the one thing that caused me to pause is that she does seem to depend, she is not adjusted or not offering anything adjusting to this new virtual world that we're having to inhabit. And since we don't really have any knowledge as to how long we're going to have to be doing this, and I don't think that based on what I've seen so far that Ms. Snyder is necessarily, her skills may not transfer to this particular environment. That's something you guys could tell better than I. So I do think, I think this is the wrong time for A, because we have an election coming up in a few months. B, because we're already hitting the community with a rate increase, and then we're going to turn around and spend more money. Doesn't look good. And C, I'm not comfortable with. I really do not believe that we will be. I'm not going to be comfortable opening up anywhere before August. I can assure you, unless there's something new happens with the testing regimes. So I think we should try to engage her and get on her schedule and have some money earmarked in the budget, but not sign a contract at this point. That's my opinion.
Director Rice.
I just want to say if we'd have done 7A first, we might see a clear demonstration why we might need a facilitator. Especially considering that this is a short agenda, and yet even with me not speaking several times when I wanted to, we're still over time. And I would hope maybe we could possibly roll the mission again. Where have you been all my elected life, for heaven's sakes? I've been asking to do the mission statement since before I was elected, so I'm loath to delay. However, maybe a good conversation starter with the consultant facilitator, however you want to call her, would be to start with the mission statement and the related goals that clearly need revision since they were done way long time ago. I mean, they can drink, right? 21 years ago. So.
Director Pearson?
Yeah, I'd like to address two things. Number one, on the mission and the goals, that's her focus. She's going to help us get there, and I'm gonna move to table 7A anyway. And answering your other one about delaying this, I don't know about you, Don, but it took me about 6 months to adjust to being on the board, getting my feet set, really understanding what the hell was going on. So doing it in January or February is not going to happen. If you've got 3 new board members, it's going to take them at least 6 or 8 months to get their feet on the ground. And the same thing if you have 2. I personally would really like Director Rice to be a part of this because of her history and her wanting to get this done and her energy on getting this kind of strategic plan in place. So I don't want to delay it. I want to get it done while she is still on the board. Okay, and this board especially, I think, is made to order for getting this done and then passing it on to the next board, and they can massage it after that. But I want this to move forward. Thank you.
You can't tell probably, but my face is bright red. Thank you for the genuinely kind comments. I appreciate that, and having a legacy to leave behind for the folks like you and I think I can appreciate that. I also can appreciate timing issues, as Director Howell was saying. So you make it really hard for me to vote no on this one. I might have to make the motion, for heaven's sake.
Well, let's get on with it.
All right, so did we need a motion to approve this?
Yeah.
Director Steidel has her hand.
Yes, I would like to make a motion, please, to approve the selection of Snyder and Associates for, oh, interesting. Okay, so this, it doesn't carry any resolution with it. So it's just a matter of approving the agreement for strategic planning services with Snyder and Associates.
I second that motion.
So Haley, I don't think you need to repeat that. Just go ahead and do a roll call vote, please.
Vice President Seidel,
Aye.
Director Pearson,
Aye.
Director Howell,
I agree with Director Pearson on most things, but again, the financial thing at this point, I think exactly what he said about Director Rice, absolutely, but I have to vote no.
Director Rice,
Aye.
President Farmer.
Aye. So here.
Sounds so excited about voting on strategic planning.
Oh, actually, I guess it sounded like I guess I'm a little tired, but I will say this, that after talking with Ms. Snyder and actually in looking at the, I don't know, the number of organizations that she hasn't been involved with and some pretty, I guess you could say, high rollers, I appreciate, well, anyway, people, you know what, there was 163 pages with regard to this agenda item. I don't know if anybody noticed with regard to everything that everybody sent in. And Ms. Snyder sent in 4 pages plus the 11 pages of the agreement. I personally feel like this is a wise move. And if nothing else, I think there's always an undercurrent of this, I shouldn't say always, but considering what we're burdened with here at this district in a variety of different ways, I think there's always there's a certain undercurrent of dissatisfaction that needs to come to the surface, and everybody kind of express themselves so we can move forward in a healthier and more, how could we say it, more compatible fashion, even though it appears that we all get along, not just on the board, but staff itself. So I'm glad we voted this way. With regard to item 7A,
Right.
it seems like the consensus is to move this a little further down the road. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Carmel, do we need an actual vote on it, or we can just table it until a future date?
You can just table it to a future date.
Okay. We don't need to determine that date at this point, right?
No.
Thank you. So moving on to future agenda items. Anybody have any suggestions, any comments?
One of the things that you and I talked about, President Farmer, is I'd like to have the board kind of direct General Manager Weigold that when he brings the budget to us next month, that he addresses cost-cutting measures that might be needed, and that he tried to hit a targets of something like 5% in case we need to cut those. He can present a budget that has the full on what he wants to do, but then I would really like to see a list of things that he would consider tabling for a while if necessary in order to save us 5% or something like that if he can reach that number.
Yeah, and this has to do with obviously some maybe some thinking outside the box, so to speak. Yes, Ms. Duffield.
So just to clarify, you would like to see this for the enterprise funds and the general fund, or just the enterprise, or just the general fund?
Both.
Because we're already cutting the enterprise funds by $115,000.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that. We're already cutting that because you just voted to reduce their revenue stream.
Yeah. Okay, you can include that as the 5% on that side.
Okay, so then you just want a general fund 5%.
Okay.
Okay, just so I know what I'm supposed to do.
All right. Thank you both for those comments. Director Rice, I see a big hand right there in the screen, so go right ahead.
Thank you, President Farmer. We need to make sure that we have a closed session to evaluate the district council and the general manager in June. That's the scheduled month when we do these things. So if Mr. Carmel, if you would help provide whatever is needed form-wise to do those evaluations, if that's agreeable with the board majority, I think we need to be doing that.
Yes, good point. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Carmel was going to comment there. I was going to bring that up. We've already arranged to do both of those after going to be doing a legal counsel at the first meeting in June in closed session, and then the evaluation of the general manager after the second meeting in June in closed session. So just to let you know, it's already been arranged. So thank you.
Mr. Carmel has his hand.
Excuse me, Carmel.
Director Rice, I think you have the form for the general manager's evaluation. You created it, I think. So
yeah, I can send it to you if you want.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes, please. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay.
Well, I guess we could all use a copy of it. I think for some reason, I'm thinking we've gotten it in the past, but then again, Director Rice, perhaps you could provide it to all of us again before the second meeting in June.
I'll send it to Tim and he can send it out.
All right, thank you. Oh, it's been 3.5 hours now, and
One more.
any further comment, Director Howe? Yes.
Oh, one more agenda item, which I mentioned earlier. I think it would be good if we could discuss and consider, shall we say, reactivating the ad hoc for looking at ways to assist in assistance in water rates.
Yes.
I think this is appropriate time to take that up. Yeah.
Yep. Agreed.
Sorry, Pam, it's more work.
Yeah, and also, Pam, weren't we going to kind of, and I think you've already mentioned this, that we were going to revisit kind of item 6D with regard to the district, the district engineer admin tech there?
Yeah.
Correct. That'll be brought forth with the budget process
Okay.
for the new fiscal year.
Right, all right. So Director Rice, you have one more comment you'd wish to make?
I was just curious if we're going to have a preliminary budget and then be approving it later like we did last time, or if this is going to be the budget. I don't know if you know that yet.
So the process is that we're under statute to adopt a preliminary budget by June 30th of every fiscal year. And that would be basically your revenue and expense plan is what that is encompassing. So then moving forward to the final budget process, you have to adopt that by August 31st of each calendar year. And that would be our final budget. So generally the revenue and expenses don't change very much unless there's something really significant that's occurred. The final budget process is more to solidify what happened in your previous fiscal year and carry forward any contracts that need to be carried forward, and basically document your reserves. You know, where did you end the year? What are you bringing forward? And that becomes your final budget.
Thank you. I just wanted some clarity so I didn't freak out that we have to look through the whole budget and have it ready for the whole year.
No, yeah, we still have opportunities. So we plan on taking that to the Finance Committee on June 4th for the review of the revenue and expense plan, and then it'll come to the board. I believe it's the 18th, whatever the second meeting date is. It would come forward to the board at that date.
Vice President Steidel.
And just as we've mentioned, the fact that the preliminary budget will be coming to the Finance Committee on June 4th, which is a Thursday at 10 a.m. We have then also canceled the May 26th meeting so that we weren't doing meeting on the heels of each other and just creating the special meeting that was specific to the budget review.
All right. Well, I heard a silent applause there from Rice. So Finance Committee meeting on the 4th. All right. So seeing no further items of discussion, I'm about to adjourn this meeting. I just want to make a comment. Not that it's all that important, but then again, it's obvious that, you know, we're at a serious crisis point on this planet. And not just the economic, but the environmental challenges that we're facing, you know, for some of us, for many of us here in our community, we seem kind of insulated from the challenges that are going on planet Earth at this time. And there is so much to generate a tremendous amount of empathy and compassion, and making us a more, how could we say it, conscious and evolved species because of what we see going on. And I just want to encourage people this weekend. You know, it's a 3-day weekend. Usually it's a weekend of celebration and commemoration, so to speak, with regard to Memorial Day. But I would hope that we all take time to reflect on the type of future that we want to, obviously we've been talking about the future of the district, but take time to reflect on what type of future we want to create for humanity and for Mother Earth moving forward. And obviously we could be saying this at every meeting, but for some particular reason, it seems extremely important at this point in time. It's a time for, like I say, a reflection, introspection, not just for ourselves personally as to what we value, but what we would hope for in the future. Because this, just thinking about the way this particular decade of the 2020s has started out, we have no idea what's on the horizon. And obviously each of us individually and collectively can create whatever that future is. So that's just how I feel. So anyway, everybody have a lovely and blessed weekend, and we'll see you next time. And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.